This world is like a cage that binds us, and the wind of no return sends the future back to the past. Two people have the same past, but different future. Two people stirred up waves in the past and future. Is that you? I went back to the past just to find you. I came from the future just to tie the knot. This world is like a huge ring, sailing from the same starting point to different futures at a certain intersection. One hates the other, and the torn scars are like lightning. When one ring intersects with another, whether it is suffering, desire, or greed, they are all infinitely magnified. P.S. Only a mystery group, learn to block vision. No love, no luck, only exploration. Chapter 1. Preface. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This world is very big, and no one is exploring how big it is. The people living on this land call it Kyushu. To the southeast and northwest of Kyushu, there are Huizhou and Yenzhou in the east. To the north are Jizhou and Yuzhou, and to the west are Yenzhou, Liangzhou, Yuzhou in the south, Jiaozhou, and Yunzhou. It is rumored that the 9 provinces were once unified by the emperor. The emperor fell and the imperial succession collapsed, and the lords of each state were responsible for governing the counties. At night, a few barks of dogs were heard in the distance, and a group of black shadows lurked on the outer wall of the Ji family mansion in Yunzhou. The moon was high and the branches were slanting, with cries and howls accompanied by waves of dog barks, breaking the silence. An elderly man in his 70s is struggling to resist the enemy, his silver thread dyed red, and he is panting heavily. With over 70 years of age, his strength has been depleted. More than 10 assassins are skilled and decisive, and their ruthless methods are astonishing. A middle-aged couple named Ji Boya and Yu Duanhong were inside the house. They tied their sleeping child behind them and watched as the old man struggled to fight for their escape time. They were mixed with sadness and anger and had no choice but to flee. The old man's name was Ji Yuan, and he was the head of the Ji family. With the last scream of the family dog, blood spurted from his throat and neck, and he kept saying intermittently, "What kind of person are you? Who are you?" His voice was like a mosquito or fly, and that group of black shadows had already disappeared into the Ji family mansion. The sky was clear and the fish were white. The 2 middle-aged couples took advantage of the spark and fled 10 miles outside the city of Yunzhou. They exchanged 2 coarse cloth clothes at a farmer's house and continued their escape. In the city of Yunzhou, a scream shattered the morning silence. The fish seller exclaimed in terror, "The Ji family is dead." A startled shout attracted countless onlookers, who all commented, "Poor thing. It's too scary. It's too poisonous." Thick blood filled the onlookers, and when the people of the Lord's mansion arrived, everyone dispersed and returned to the market. The fugitives have traveled far, and the desperate impermanence is pressing forward step by step. Beasts and birds are scattered in the mountains, a few wild monkeys are shouting, and a group of masked men in splendid costumes are riding horses and whipping, chasing after the 2 fugitive couples ahead. A few old trees bloom with new flowers, a few old vines sprout with new buds, the wind drives the flowers to fall and the mud stains the fragrance of the flowers, riding horses and raising dust for 10 miles to hide and kill. The fugitives step forward and run in haste, the pursuers approach, and a deadly ghost arrives. The fugitive knew it was difficult to escape, so he stopped and gasped for breath. Sweat had already soaked his clothes, and as he looked at the sleeping child in swaddling clothes, his heart felt a bit more at ease. A group of masked people had arrived, and the couple's eyes were firm. With just one eye contact, they knew the next step. The 2 of them held swords and didn't hesitate to speak. The sword's aura was strong, forcing more than 10 people off their horses. In an instant, birds scattered on the barren mountain, monkeys fled, and the sound of choking gold and stones clashing shook away the fog and shattered the dawn of the morning. Several silent pursuers fell to the ground 3 or 5 times, and the 2 of them fled again. The mountain was already steep, and their feet became heavier. Ji Boya looked at his beloved wife, handed over the child behind him, and took off the jade plaque in his arms, dividing it in half. Ji-boya said, "Rainbow. Take your child and leave my broken back." Yu Duanhong took the jade plaque and carried the child behind her back. A pair of children seemed to know their parents were in danger and did not cry. Yu Duanhong said, "Husband. Let's kill the enemy together." Ji-boya's heart was burning with anxiety and he said, "Put children first, run away. Raise them up and avenge my Ji family as soon as possible." The pursuer was already within reach, and Ji-boya resolutely looked back and loudly said, "Let's go." A deep-hearted person, with hazy eyes and a ruthless heart, does not turn back, does not hesitate, forgets the steep rocks, forgets the pain of thorns cutting through flesh and blood, forgets fatigue, only knows that with every extra step taken, there is a possibility of life. The heart that stands still is as strong as iron, waiting resolutely. The wind blows a head full of green silk, holding down the upright sword with both hands. The gaze is sharp like a sharpened blade that has been sharpened for a long time. A man with a heart like steel has no time for the peach blossoms on this mountain, with a faint fragrance of peach blossoms. In his eyes, there were only a few people, a person dressed in yellow attire and a group of masked people behind him. Ji-boya held up to the sky, moved his body, and his sword was unsheathed. The sword rises and the clouds move, and the masked ones also quickly counterattack. Ji-boya's body is like a fish in the river, tossing and turning, and the group of masked ones are not easy to deal with. They are cunning and direct attacks on the key points. The person who killed the enemy had red eyes, allowing the deadly sword to carry bleeding flowers on his body. Ji-boya was covered in blood, and his red eyes were covered in blood. He knew that even if he died, he would still hold on to the person in front of him. The leader dressed in yellow clothes said, "Put your hands down and kill." Ji-boya, like a bloody lion, angrily said, "Who are you? Why did you slaughter more than 300 members of my Ji family?" The person dressed in yellow attire untied the black cloth on his face and revealed his true face, saying, "As a dying person, I have no scruples." Ji-boya's eyes were startled, and the person in front of him was a familiar one. Ji-boya gritted his teeth and angrily said, "Lu Yucai." Lu Yucai said, "Please don't get angry, my dear nephew. I will have you reunite with your family right away." Ji-boya, with a surge of true qi in her body and bloodstains flowing from the corners of her mouth, laughed wildly and said, "Let's bury together in the underworld." Lu Yucai hurriedly said, "Everyone, quickly retreat." But it was already too late. I saw Ji-boya's blood rushing all over his body, sword hanging above his head. Ji-boya laughed loudly and said, "Sword. Weeping blood. Drinking horses and raging waves." The majestic sword energy is like a surging tide, flying sand and stones. When the dust settled, a few more corpses were added to the ground, leaving only 2 people on the field. Time no longer mattered to the person standing with the falling stars in the sky. Lu Yucai looked at the man standing in front of him and said, "Your Ji family's jade-shattering move is truly amazing." After speaking, his internal organs surged and his blood spurted out, indicating that Lu Yucai's internal injury was not light. A man in a grey robe walked up to Lu Yucai and sneered, "Lu Yucai, it seems like your job is not easy." Lu Yucai closed her eyes and breathed a sigh, "Don't make a sound. Why didn't you take action early?" The grey clothes remained silent and said, "Hey, Lord Lu, how much money do I charge and how many things do I do?" Lu Yucai's heart became anxious and a mouthful of blood spurted out, "Hurry up and chase after me. Leave no survivors." Mo Shoshin looked at Ji-boya standing in the same place, his body bent and his blood burned out, and his soul had already returned to the 9 springs. Mo Shoshin shook his head and said, "Tsk, feeling that life is impermanent, and life and death are only fleeting. A woman with 2 childish children on her back feels a great earthquake in the mountains, rolling under the rocks, and her heart aches. The painful woman shouted loudly, "Husband!" With tears and blood in her eyes, Yu Duanhong stumbled and fell to the ground, crying in shock on her back. The crying of the child made Yu Duanhong lift up some strength and climb up again. The person in grey clothes, Mo Shousheng, had chased after Yu Duanhong. Mo Shousheng said, "Where else are you, the girl who has suffered so much?" In response, he emitted a cold sword aura. Lu Yucai took a moment to calm down and continued to catch up. After all, Mo Shou himself was not 100% trusted. Yu Duanhong has reached a critical point, but the child is crying and tearing her heart and lungs. Yu Duanhong looks at her feet, the road to the end has arrived. Helpless. Helpless. Yu Duanhong held the two children and looked at them gently, unbuttoning her clothes and sweetly comforting and calming them. Yu Duanhong hummed a gentle tune softly, and the pursuer had already arrived. Yu Duanhong can't hear or see, with only cute children in her eyes, unable to accommodate anything else. Mo silently watched as the mother and son in front of him did not take action. The ruthless assassin also twisted steel and twisted his fingers in front of gentle motherly love. Later, Lu Yucai arrived and said, "Why didn't Mo speak and take action?" Mo spoke up and said, "Animals never kill each other while drinking water, let alone humans in front of me." Lu Yucai looked at the woman in front of her, her eyes fixed on the two soft lumps on Yu Duanhong's chest. Her throat was filled with thirst, and she couldn't hide the lust of the fox and wolf in one gulp. Lu Yucai stepped forward and said, "Although I have heard that Bai Yaxian's niece is virtuous and beautiful, now I see her as a beautiful woman in a city." Upon hearing the foul language, Yu Duanhong spat on Lu Yucai's face. Without getting angry, Lu Yucai exclaimed more happily, "Zhenli Effendi is even more in my heart. Why don't you marry into my Lu mansion and become a concubine?" Yu Duanhong looked at Lu Yucai with a cold smile, as if she no longer cared about who appeared in front of her. Yu Duanhong gritted her teeth and said, "A despicable and shameless person." Lu Yucai smiled indifferently and said, "As long as my virtuous nephew becomes my concubine, I can ensure that your mother and son are safe." Mo spoke up and walked a few steps behind Lu Yucai, saying, "I know you, Lu Yucai, are a lascivious person. I never thought you were such a disgusting person." Lu Yucai's face changed and he said, "Don't speak up. You should use the money to do things, and it's best to keep your dog's mouth shut." Yu Duanhong said, "A bird of a feather needs no sharp confrontation. Lu Yucai, there are 318 members of my Ji family. Even if you are a ghost, you will not be spared. And you?" Yu Duanhong pointed at the two of them. Yu Duanhongxin knew that her military strength was not a match for the two of them. There was no way out on the cliff in front of her, and in the moment when Lu Chuanxin died, the woman holding her two children burst into laughter as she watched her enemy burst into laughter and jumped off the cliff. Lu Yucai looked regretful and said urgently, "Don't make a sound, go down and find it quickly. Don't sneer out loud and say, 'Lu Yucai, you're afraid that pervert has gone to your head.' This is the 9 Yuan Mountain Bird Wall. Do you know why it's called the Bird Wall? The Bird Wall spans thousands of miles and is an abyss. Because even birds can't fly up. Give me the silver as soon as possible." Liu Yu thought to herself, although she had not tasted the taste of beauty. "I should be able to deliver, but the regret and itching in my heart made me uncomfortable." I then threw a stack of silver tickets and left the 9 Yuan mountain peak. Mo picked up the silver ticket from the ground and said happily, "In this world, only money is the closest. TSK TSK TSK." Carrying the silver ticket, he hummed a tune and left. I don't know if it's the mercy of the heavens or the teasing of the king of hell. Yu Duanhong, who jumped off the cliff, tightly held the two children in her arms, while a small yellow wattle tree in the crevice of the rock happened to support the mother and son. The tremendous impact made the roots of the tree tremble and crumble. Yu Duanhong looked at the child, afraid to move around, and things went against her wishes with a loud crash. The roots of the tree detached, accompanied by the rocks, and the mother and son fell again. The mother and son three fell to the bottom of the valley, where huge trees towered high and vines densely covered, like a natural large net that happened to trap them. Fortunately, the small tree in front of them released its force, and Yuanhong's body was down. The baby in her arms was very calm, and the huge impact caused Yuanhong to have multiple fractures, and the skin and flesh at the spinal fracture area turned outward. Her lower limbs were already numb. Darkness invaded both eyes of Yuanhong, who had been unconscious for an unknown amount of time. The child's occasional murmurs and occasional crying awakened Yuanhong. Yuanhong struggled to untie her clothes and remained unconscious for several days without eating. She was also seriously injured, with no excess milk left. She wanted to shout, her throat was dry and she had already lost her voice. Tears flowed out of her eyes unconsciously, and her life was doomed. For the rest of her life after death, why add another calamity? Yuanhong tried her best to move her body, except for her tightly held hands that never let go. How could her unconscious body listen to commands? Yuanhong took a side glance and realized that she was still on the vine net several meters high, afraid to move. In her heart, she only hoped that God would give the child in her arms a glimmer of vitality. Is it true that blessings come in pairs, and misfortune never comes alone? Chapter 1. Mutual Dependence of Disaster and Fortune. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The chaos of heaven and earth remains unchanged, with yin and yang, life and death, and unruly human relationships in March of Kyushu. The spring swallows carry the clouds. The warm spring trade wind carries the fragrance of falling petals and peach blossoms, with faint mountain songs emanating from the fragrance of flowers. A woman lies on the treetops and vines, with two newborn babies sleeping exceptionally sweetly in her arms. The distant mountain song is getting closer and closer. The old man is in his 70s this year, and the immortals taught me to pick herbs. To pick immortal herbs to dispel plague. To save patience and laugh. The voice was approaching, and Yuanhong, lying paralyzed on the giant vine, seemed to be swayed by the song. She was pleasantly surprised and wanted to shout loudly. Her lost voice hoarsely shouted, "Help! Help us!" Her breath was weak, and her voice was too low. Even so, Yuanhong still screamed with all her might, her birth gate right in front of her. She wanted to shake the vines with her body, but the giant vines were thicker than her own hands, with multiple fractures throughout her body, and she was powerless to shake them. Her pale cries were only for those who longed to sing mountain songs to hear. Yuanhong heard the sound of footsteps under her body, and in a hurry, she grabbed a leaf and threw it down. The leaves fell right in front of the old man, who cursed, "Where did the wild monkey cause trouble?" Looking up, a black figure lay on top of his head, causing the old man to shrink in fear. The old man rubbed his eyes as if he had heard a soft cry for help. He was sure he wasn't shaking his mind, so he quickly climbed up to save the person and saw the mother and son. Yuanhong saw the old man weakly say, "Help my son." The old man said, "Don't worry, woman. The old man will definitely save you." The old man tied vines to the basket and slowly put the two sleeping children into it. Then, he wrapped the vines around Yuanhong's body and slowly let them go, afraid of hurting the girl. Hurried down the tree, hurriedly carrying the seriously injured Yuanhong on his back, holding the two children in his hands and running towards the residence. Although the old man is old, fortunately, the people in the mountains and fields can still walk 5 steps in 3 steps with a woman on their back. Fortunately, not far from home, I pushed open the door and shouted, "Old lady, boil water quickly." The old woman didn't say much and quickly followed the scene in front of her. The old man placed the mother and son on the bed and quickly searched for the medicine box. The old man himself made a living by picking herbs, so he naturally understood some techniques of dispelling yellow. The old man's name is Du Wenji, and his mother-in-law's name is Li Xiufang. The old mother.in.law was also saved by Du when he was young. She spent her whole life collecting herbs, but it was inconvenient to go out from this valley for several months. Now the old man is just going into the mountains to find the good medicine that has been used for years, and he basically won't go out of the valley. Mrs. Li boiled water and shouted loudly, "The water is good, old man." Du Laohan said, "Keep your voice down. I'm not deaf, so don't disturb the patient." Du Laohan also said, "Old lady, take off this woman's clothes and turn her over. It's really inconvenient for me." Li Laopa quickly followed suit. The scabbed flesh and blood had already adhered to the clothes. Du Laohan instructed Grandma Li, use some hot water. Clean the wound, then sprinkle his unique secret medicine to wrap the wound and change the clothes for the girl. Grandma Li knew that Du Laohan was upright and said, I know. Du Laohan said, "I'll go outside and cook some porridge. The two little dolls will feed them when they wake up." Grandma Li said, "I've already cooked it. You go see what it looks like and take a break." Du Laohan said, "Your wife has such a good heart and eyes." Du Laohan fixed the moon rainbow legs and spine with wooden boards. The two dolls also woke up, and the two old people were all in a hurry. Grandma Li hurriedly said, "Is the thin rice porridge good?" Du Laohan said, "It will take a while." Two ancient and rare elderly people were like this, rushing around for a month, and it was a sunny day. Grandma Li was feeding her baby rice porridge and muttered, "Oh, the girl is so bitter. She can't drink milk. I'm afraid she won't live long." During her speech, Yu Duanhong moved her hand. Grandma Li quickly shouted, "Old man! Old man! Come here, this girl seems to be awake. I just saw her do it." Du Laohan hurriedly entered the room and looked at Yu Duanhong, saying, "Woman, have you woken up?" Yu Duanhong slowly opened her eyes and weakly said, "Thank you, mister, for saving your life." Du Laohan said, "Woman, don't speak. It's important to cultivate yourself. Let's wait until you recover from your injuries." Then Du Laohan turned to Grandma Li and said, "Madam, I'll go catch some fish to help this girl replenish her vitality." In March, the spring in the valley still had a hint of coolness, with flowers blooming on the trees and smoke rising from the small tiled houses. Today, Du Laohan seemed particularly happy because it was his 70th birthday. Li Granny was carrying a doll on her back and stewing wild goat meat in a pot. This sheep was obtained by Li Laohan yesterday when he went up the mountain, and coincidentally, he had his own birthday today. At the dinner table, the old man drank a homemade medicinal wine and said, "Speaking of this sheep, it ran around like a headless fly yesterday. I think it must have been chasing after that bobcat and bumping into that big tree. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such good meat today." Yu Duanhong was still weak in bed and said, "Mr. Du is kind. It must be the mountain god who knows that Mr. Du is good at giving you a reward." Grandma Li said, "This girl is beautiful and has a sweet mouth, and the two dolls are also born handsome." Grandma Li looked at Mr. Du and said, "Woman, you said we are too old to be a descendant. If you don't mind calling us parents, would you?" Yu Duanhong heard the sobbing voice and said, "Mr. Li and Mr. Du, it was my mother and son who saved our lives. Even if we were cows or horses, it would be difficult for us to repay the kindness. However, the young woman is currently in poor health and unable to bow. I hope you don't blame me, Mr. Heir." Upon hearing this, Du Lao exclaimed with joy, "Oh my! Salute, we are just rough people from the mountains and wilderness. If we don't talk about that, when we get old, we want to enjoy the feeling of being called parents." Grandma Li said, "The girl's mouth is really sweet." Yu Duanhong blushed and said, "Dad, Mom, Duanhong won't be able to bow anymore." A peaceful atmosphere filled with harmony, and the moon on the mountaintop quietly joined in a lively scene, accompanied by a few wild animal calls. The night became quiet, stars twinkled in the valley, and the candlelight of the tiled house still accompanied the cheers of the whole hall. Late at night, the chirping of spring insects is still dormant, with continuous drizzle accompanied by the fragrance of flowers. Let's have another good night's dream. The sound of birds breaking the dawn of the valley. The half-dead wood outside the tiled house has a trunk diameter of tens of feet, and several emerald green buds can still be clearly seen in the scorched black area. The leaves are sparkling and vibrant, and a few dewdrops on the leaves project warm spring sunshine, making it very comfortable to see. Perhaps this scene can be called meeting life after death. The fracture of the old tree indicates that it was once struck by lightning from the sky, and now the few tender shoots are swearing the power of life. Like this touch of tender green, embellishing the entire valley, the tiled houses stand out among the crowd. Apart from this dilapidated tiled house, there are no other traces of human intervention in the valley. Accompanied by it was the mountain cat bug hidden in the valley, but now it was noon and the mountain cat bug was playing chess with Duke Show. Hoo! A gust of trade wind swept by, causing the precious seedlings and flowers in the valley to tilt. The irresistible natural force made the flowers bow down, and a roar of beasts came from within the valley, as if they were particularly dissatisfied with the warm spring trade wind, disturbing their clear dreams. The big bird spread its wings, as if blocking out the sky and the sun. A giant shadow drifted by, and the warm sun still lingered. The mountain flowers accompanied butterflies, and a few bees were busy. The dark clouds arrived, and the gentle rain irrigated the 100-mile valley, shedding the thick old makeup. The emerald green swayed, and a cry of a baby echoed through the valley. The two elderly people were in a hurry, and a woman in her 30s secretly chuckled. Yu Duanhong guided the two busy elderly people to replace the diapers for their children. Du Laohan chuckled and said, "Oh, this child is really naughty. The diaper that the old man just changed got wet again." Grandma Li said, "Which doll doesn't have to be like this? Maybe when you're that old, your dad won't have time to exchange it, and you'll have it in your dad's hands." Du Laohan responded, "Old lady, aren't you the same?" Laughs drowned out the fleeting passage of time. The person lying in bed, except for being unable to walk, is no longer in any serious condition, while the doll lying next to the woman has grown up quite a bit, indicating that the two elderly people are very dedicated. The sun rises and the sun sets, and the cold comes and goes. Several seasons of spring and autumn have passed, and the two children are already fully capable of climbing. Slow down contains maternal love and the love of the next generation. The two children were ignorant in climbing on the vine mat, playing with the unknown and feeling very happy. A woman in a wheelchair took care of them with her eyes, while the two elderly people sorted out the aged mountain goods and occasionally smiled as they watched their growing children. The old man smiled and said, "Rainbow, this doll is growing up day by day. It really looks like you." Yu Duanhong smiled and said, "They look more like his father." She hesitated for a moment, but soon the shadow on her face was covered, but she couldn't escape the gaze of the person who cared. Grandma Li stared and said, "What's wrong with those things? It's better to get more good meat for the doll." Du Laohan also noticed a hint of abnormality in Yu Duanhong's appearance, and knew that it had stirred up painful memories for her. He quickly said, "I'll catch some fish now. Now that river fish is laying eggs upright, it's the season for delicious food." Yu Duanhong said, "Recently, there has been a lot of rain and the river has been very turbulent. Dad, be careful when you go here." Du Laohan held a basket woven with vines and said, "The old man knows very well. Don't worry, women. The old man will come back later." Grandma Li walked a few steps behind old Du and said, "Old man, be careful in everything." Du Laohan cursed and said, "The young woman is worried about filial piety. You're cursing me so much, aren't you?" After speaking, he walked towards the burnt black tree stump. Fortunately, it was already noon when the old man arrived at the riverbank that morning. He took off his clothes and dived into the river. As the old man stepped out of the water, a golden carp struggled and tossed in his hand. The old man returned home with the stars and moon. Grandma Li was obviously familiar with all of this and whispered, "The dolls have all fallen asleep, keep your voice down." Old Man Du tiptoed and placed the big fish in a wooden basin to feed. The voice of Yu Duanhong came from inside the house and said, "Has Daddy come back?" After receiving an answer from Du Lao Han, she blew out the candle. At night, insects began to sing in the valley, and the mountain cats roared in waves. The night quietly began to pass by. It is fate that sometimes brings misfortune and good fortune together. Chapter 2. When Teenagers Grow Up. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Cold and summer come and go, and in the blink of an eye, 16 years have passed. The unchanged mountains and rivers, the unchanged plants and trees have changed to 2 more small tiled houses, and a pile of soil has been added under the old tree next to the house. 2 inexperienced youths are wielding knives and sticks. A woman with graying temples was sitting in a wheelchair. It was Yu Duanhong and her twin sons, an old man leaning on a cane, sitting in front of the hall watching the 2 boys. The warm sun at the bottom of the valley always faded faster than outside. The old man trembled and said, "Xiao Zhou, I have something to say," when Xiao He and Honger enter the house. Ji Xiao Zhou, Ji Xiaohe, both brothers were walking with their hands and feet, and Yu Duanhong gave them a glare. 2 people are honest. Du Lao said, "Rainbow, I don't have many years left to enjoy the joy of family. These are the happiest years of an old man's life. Now that Xiao Zhou and Xiao He have both grown up, I know that birds with full wings always yearn to soar in the sky. I actually wanted to tell you a few years ago, but looking at the 2 children is unbearable. Now, the old lady has come to see me. I'm sorry, I've trapped you here." Yu Duanhong hurriedly shed tears and said, "Dad, don't talk nonsense. You didn't trap us. If it weren't for you, we would have died 16 years ago." The 2 teenagers felt that their grandfather's speech seemed different from usual, so they quickly knelt down and said together, "Grandpa, did we provoke your old man?" Du said slowly, "Silly grandson, it's your grandmother who came to see me. Grandma said she's too lonely alone." "Grandpa, don't worry." Du Lao said, "Honger, these 2 children are intelligent and lovely. This valley is their cage, and they will continue to marry and have children in the future. I understand. A few years ago, I secretly collected all the good medicines I left when I was young. I put them in the pharmacy cabinet, and those are treasures. It's enough for them to wander around and beg for a mother. In law." Yu Duanhong nodded tearfully and said, "Dad, I know." Du nodded and said, "Xiao Zhou, Xiao He, you 2 should go practice swordsmanship again. Grandpa wants to see it." The 2 young men nodded. Old Du touched Duanhong too and said, "Honger, go and cook some rice porridge. The old man wants to drink it." Yu Duanhong pushed the wheel and only turned around. Looking back, it was already a separation of heaven and earth, and she cried out in a mournful voice, "Daddy." The 2 children also quickly ran into the house. They thought it was an old man's nonsense, but they knew it was just following his words. Du Wenji saved Yu Duanhong's 3 companions in the twilight of his life. They lived for 16 years, and now closing their eyes can be considered a good ending. Mother and son will handle the aftermath 1 month later. Yu Duanhong angrily said, "With all your heart and effort, how can you avenge your father like this?" The 2 young men lowered their heads and remained silent, their faces blushing to the bottom of their ears. Ji Xiaozhou said, "Mother, we don't want to go out, we just want to take care of you." Yu Duanhong became even angrier and said, "2 useless things, we in the Ji family don't have people like you who are not as bad as you. 16 years ago, your father sacrificed the lives of the 3 of us to protect us. Our bones were not cold, and today we are all exchanged with your father's life. Your Grandpa Du saved us and raised us. Grandpa Du passed away peacefully. It is our conscience to send him a good rest. Think about our enemies occupying everything in the Ji family. Our Ji family has more than 300 members, and we are the only three of us living here. What is that for? You two are not so good. Xiaohe knelt down and said, Mother, my brother and I actually have a plan. I'll go out. Brother, stay and take care of you. Even if I encounter misfortune, there is still someone else who can take care of you. And with my dexterity, I can definitely turn the tide. Yu Duanhong said, Foolish. Who do you think you are? On your shoulders are the future of my Ji family and the blood feuds of the past. Yu Duanhong's heart softened again and said, For over 10 years, my heart has not calmed down. Thinking about your father, I feel heartbroken for my mother, and I don't want to send your brothers away either. Every time I think about your father, I hope you two grow up soon and avenge our Ji family. Ji Xiaozhou said, Mother, believe in your younger brother, believe in both of us. Our brothers have always remembered this blood debt. Ji Xiaozhou said, My younger brother is quick-witted and his martial arts are much stronger than mine. My mother's legs are inconvenient, so someone must take care of her. Yu Duanhong tearfully said, Zhou is known to my mother. You have a calm personality and are upright. You let your younger brother do everything, and you are all flesh from my mother's body. Don't you know what you think is my mother? After speaking, Yu Duanhong said, Then you two should practice martial arts well for a few days, and soon I will make a decision for my mother. The two young boys nodded. 5 days later, Yu Duanhong waited for the two children to finish practicing martial arts and said, Zhou, here. Actually, I know that your two children are putting in a lot of effort. I want you two to go out together and take care of each other. Although I have difficulty walking, I want you to survive on your own. Besides, who taught you martial arts? Xiao, he said, my mother taught me. Yu Duanhong looked at the two red-faced children and smiled, saying, You two need to change your blushing habits. She said, I know that our enemies in the Ji family are not insignificant. They are not ordinary martial arts practitioners, they are likely cultivators behind them. Ji Xiaozhou and Ji Xiaohe exclaimed in surprise, a practitioner. Yu Duanhong said, That's right. Your grandfather Ji Yuan was also a cultivator. He was like a martial arts practitioner in our Ji family, and we're not afraid of him. I'm going to take you out of the valley as my mother. I also want you two to find that cultivator and learn martial arts from him. Practicing martial arts allows you two to have martial arts skills when encountering the bandits of the Jackal and Wolf Mountain. Ji Xiaozhou said, What mother means is that our true enemies are not just Lu Yucai. Don't speak up. Yu Duanhong said, The Lu family is just a lackey. Don't make a sound that they are just accomplices hired by Lu Yucai with money. Although this person had some mercy on my mother and son back then, it is also true that this person slaughtered my Ji family. Ji Xiaohe said, Since the mother wants her child to find those people who practice, how should the child find those people when she has truly learned the skills? Yu Duanhong said, Although your grandfather can also be considered a practitioner, he is just that expert wandering around in our Ji family mansion for a few days. The expert saw that your grandfather was kind-hearted, so he gave guidance to your grandfather. When you went to be my mother, you two thought of a place, which is the Lingshan mountain in the southwest of Shudong. Our Yu family is from Shudong. When I was young, I heard your grandfather say that there are immortals on the Lingshan mountain who can travel thousands of miles a day and fly swords. Ji Xiaozhou said, Ah. Our grandfather is from the east of Sichuan. We don't know yet. Yu Duanhong said, In recent years, I have never told your brothers about my mother's family. I have always asked you two to practice martial arts diligently. It was also because of my mother's negligence. Today, I will talk to you two about your grandfather and our Yu family. The two nodded and listened attentively to their mother's account. Our Moon family. Late at night, a few insect calls accompanied the teachings of the tiled woman, telling the stories of her past. A sleepless night's dream. The sound of birds shattering the dawn of the valley, the moonlight rainbow carefully packing her bags, and the precious herbs left by Du Lao are dazzling. Ji Xiaohe felt heartbroken when he saw his mother tidying up and wiping away her tears. Ji Xiaozhou pushed Ji Xiaohe's shoulder as a sign to practice martial arts, and his brothers naturally didn't need to say anything more. 16 years have been like a day. In the afternoon, Yu Duanhong said, "Zhou'er, here Wenyang has packed your things for you. Let's go later." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Since you mentioned your grandfather's family, why don't you go to the east of Sichuan with us? With your grandfather and uncle, they can also take care of you." Yu Duanhong Judo said, "Silly child, my mother is someone who got married. It's been over a decade now, and my mother has become accustomed to life here. You've become a burden with me instead. My mother is also safer here, and no one can enter here." Looking back on the past, Yu Duanhong made some excuses. Ji Xiaohe said, "Doesn't that mother want to go see her grandfather?" Yu Duanhong said tactfully, "As long as they are good, I'll disturb them again. Isn't it causing trouble for them? Alright, you two don't have to say anything more. I have a letter, you can bring it to your uncle and them when you arrive in Shudong." Yu Duanhong warned, "Zhou'er, here, the journey is far away. You must remember what my mother taught you. When you go out, don't use your surname Ji. Do you know your surname Du? Don't trust anyone easily, let alone women, especially those who are beautiful. You grew up in this valley and don't understand the deceit of human hearts. You should learn to show weakness in everything." Ji Xiaohe said, "Don't worry. Mother, please take good care of yourself. Don't go to the Monkey Cho Gorge at the mouth of the valley." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Mother, let's go then." At noon, the two brothers walked side by side, taking 3 steps and turning back with great reluctance. Mother bid farewell to her son, and son bid farewell to his mother. The day was dull and tears were silent. The valley road was difficult, and as they traveled eastward in Sichuan, they fell into the water with a sound and tears were silent. In the evening, the two brothers arrived at the Ape Sorrow Gorge, which was named by Du Lao. There was only a half-foot path above the cliff, and there was a surging river water. The mist at their feet was vast and deep, making it difficult for apes and monkeys to pass through. This shows how dangerous this place is. The two brothers were young and knew very well about it. When the two of them crossed the Ape Sorrow Gorge and the moon had risen to the top of the branches, they took advantage of the moonlight and traveled 8 or 9 miles again, in a hiking cave. After tidying up the hay in the cave, the two of them lay down and slept soundly. This cave was also the residence for Du Lao to sell medicine in the valley, and the two brothers had also followed Du Lao out of the valley before. But just a few times. At sunrise, the two brothers began to fight early, which was a habit imprinted in their blood. They then traveled to Feiyu Ferry, which was also named by Du Lao. "It's already afternoon." Xiao Zhou said, "After passing here, there are only a few dangerous roads left ahead." Ji Xiaohe said, "Flying fish crossing. My grandfather said that when he was young, he watched schools of fish leap upstream here, which is why he named it Flying Fish Crossing." Ji Xiaozhou urged, "Hurry up and tie the stones and cross the river." Immediately, the two of them tied several large stones to their bodies with vines and began crossing the river. The water was turbulent and ordinary people couldn't cross the river. The two of them had been practicing martial arts since childhood and followed Du Lao up the mountain to collect medicine. They often came here to catch the peach blossom fish. The bottom of the beach was even more aware of this. The two brothers were able to hold their bodies in the water with the help of a large stone on their waist. 2 hours later, they emerged from the water and each had an extra big fish in their hands. They went ashore and grilled the fish's internal organs until golden brown, accompanied by a secret medicinal powder that exuded a strong fragrance. Taking advantage of the moonlight, the two brothers rushed several miles and rested in a row of footholds until dawn. 2 months later, Ji Xiaohe and Ji Xiaozhou finally walked out of the valley and arrived at the first city out of the valley, Bo City, which is a small city in the Huizhou border. This city is famous for its mountain and wild medicinal treasures. So other drug dealers from various states and cities came here to purchase rare medicines. This is not their first time here, nor is it their second time. The two brothers took a break at a wild shop where they used to live with Mr. Du. The next day, Ji Xiaozhou and Ji Xiaohe went to the market and found Ren Ji's pharmacy, where his former grandfather sold medicine. Ji Xiaozhou said, "Have the shopkeeper ever recognized me?" The merchant looked at the two brothers and they looked a bit familiar. After thinking back for a while without realizing anything, he said, "I'm sorry that my old eyes are dazed. I do remember the two young masters, and I really can't remember when I saw them." Ji Xiaohe then said, "Shop owner, my two brothers came here 3 years ago and also came with my grandfather when we were young." The shopkeeper patted his head and said, "Are you two young masters of the Du family? Old Du has not been here for many years, and I don't know if he is still alive." Ji Xiaohe said, "Grandpa is already old, so my two brothers came to sell medicine." The shop owner sighed and said, "Mr. Du has been selling rare goods every time he comes. In recent years, there hasn't been much good in this market. What treasures do the two young masters want to sell?" Although it was a compliment, it was also somewhat true. After all, Mr. Du is indeed selling good goods, and this shop owner has been giving him good prices for the medicine he sells for many years. Ji Xiaozhou took out a small package from his bag and said, "I know the shopkeeper is sincere. This is the top-quality Huangjing that my grandfather collected before. This is not ordinary Huangjing, it is Huangjing." The shop owner's eyes suddenly lit up and looked at the contents of the package. With only half of his head exposed, he asked the waiter to close the door. The shopkeeper smiled and said, "Young masters, this medicine has been at least 60 years old. Your grandfather and I are also old acquaintances, and I don't deceive children. I am willing to give you 3,000 taels. With more, I really can't take it." The shopkeeper's face showed joy and a hint of difficulty. Ji Xiaozhou looked at Ji Xiaohe and said, "Deal." The shopkeeper readily said to the two of them, "Young masters, please wait for half a day. I will go to the bank to withdraw the money, and you can keep the medicine for now." Half a day later, I saw the shopkeeper gave the two brothers a silver note. I saw two young gentlemen coming on their way. So I bought 2 good horses for them. A horse was far away from the 2 young gentlemen, and it was also fast. I immediately prepared some dry food for them, which was also a gift from me to the 2 young friends. Ji Xiaohe said, "The shop owner is benevolent and righteous. Grandpa mentioned it a lot before his death, and my brothers have known about it since childhood." Ji Xiaozhou arched his hand and said, "Sir, my 2 brothers also need horses." "Thank you very much, sir." Ji Xiaozhou clenched his fists and said, "Mr. Lao, let's bid farewell now. Goodbye by chance." After a round of pleasantries, the 2 of them rode their horses and continued their journey to the east of Sichuan. The shop owner saw that the 2 had already left and happily hugged the female worker, giving them a kiss. They smiled with a cunning attitude and said, "You've made a lot of money. These 2 silly kids are really good treasures. I don't even know what the price of this thing is, it's worth at least 30,000 taels. Ha ha ha." After going to bid farewell to the clouds, the moon inside and outside the village is different. A green lotus painting on a green plate, dragonflies flying to smell the fragrance far away. Chapter 3. Searching for relatives from thousands of miles. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After days of rushing around, the scenery passed by the 2 of them. The boat and horse were busy on the southwest official road, and the 2 brothers found a shady spot to rest. They heard the sound of fighting coming from not far ahead. Ji Xiaozhou gestured to Ji Xiaohe not to move and to act on his own. Coincidentally, a man in a red robe was injured and fled towards the 2 brothers. When the man in the red robe saw the 2 brothers, he hurriedly said, "Little brother, help." A cold arrow followed the sound, but in the blink of an eye, the man in the red robe fell to the ground with a hidden arrow, and behind him were more than 10 gray-clothed men, the leader of whom was wearing a deep gray long robe. The person carefully looked at the two brothers and said, "Young brother, we are from Muyang Prefecture in Jizhou. I am Li Wanan. This time, I was ordered by the head of Muyang Prefecture to arrest the evil disciple of the fire sect. That person was just now." Then he pointed to the man lying limp on the ground. Ji Xiaohe looked at the fallen person and said, "I am from Buchen, Huizhou. I am going to visit my family in the southwest." Li Wanan said, "Little brother, this fire cult villain kills and sets fire to all kinds of evil deeds, committing adultery, women, and children. He is even more rampant to the point of forcibly capturing the Huanghua eldest daughter in the waiting girl. I just saw this and seemed to be asking for help from the two little brothers, fearing that there might be unexpected consequences, so I shot arrows to take my life." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Brother Li, are you serious about this?" Fortunately, the two of them haven't had a chance to intervene yet, otherwise there would have been a misunderstanding, and it would have been difficult to explain. Li Wanan hurriedly said, "That's exactly what I've just mentioned. If this guy just escaped, in a few days, he will start another storm and cause trouble for his side." After finishing speaking, he threw a small white bottle to the two brothers and said, "This is the antidote to miasma phosphate powder. Going to the southwest, there are many miasma valleys on the way. If you feel unwell, take one pill and you will be safe." The Ji Xiaohe brothers arched their hands and said, "Thank you very much, Brother Li. My brothers and I have just arrived, and today we had the chance to meet Brother Li. It was actually a fortunate encounter for both of us." Ji Xiaozhou pulled out a small package from the package and said, "This is the 5-flavored spirit fruit. Today, I received a medicine from Brother Li. Coincidentally, my two brothers are medicinal farmers in Buizhou. Each of the 5 colors of this fruit has its own unique use." Li Wanan saw the two brothers giving gifts with a slightly awkward expression and said, I'm a bit embarrassed about that." Ji Xiaohe said, "Hey, since my two brothers can meet a hero like Li, these things are not that big of a deal." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Brother Li, let's say goodbye now. I still have some way to go." He bowed and bid farewell to Li Wanan. The two brothers galloped their horses until sunset. Ji Xiaohe said, "Take a break, brother." Ji Fengzhou said, "Brother, hurry up and take another journey." Ji Xiaohe said, "Brother, do you think Brother Li at noon is a good person or a bad person?" Ji Fengzhou said, "It doesn't matter whether good or bad people are good, but my mother said that we must have a heart to guard against others. Let's not take the medicine well." Ji Xiaohe said, "That's what I think too. His medicine is not as good as ours." On the third day, Yuzhou Prefecture, Jiama City. The two brothers traveled for a few more days and finally arrived at a bustling place called Jiama City. This Jiama City is the official residence of city lords in various states, where horses can be exchanged. Coincidentally, this city is located in the Central Plains region, which is why there is a saying about Jiama City. Most merchants smell business opportunities and are confident in doing business here. After all, the money from the state capital is much more secure than that from the common people. The two of them found a nearby hotel. After all, they were both people who grew up in the mountains and didn't care about those things. It would be great if they could have a place to shelter from the rain. Ji Xiaohe whispered, "Brother, let's take a look at what medicine is in that bottle. I've been reading it for a few days now, but I feel uncomfortable." Ji Xiaozhou smiled and said, "Don't look." He said without looking, but he still took out his hand and poured out 2 red medicinal pills. The two of them smelled them. Ji Xiaohe said, "It's just an ordinary medicinal herb, it's an antidote." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Brother, why do you think this medicine is red?" Ji Xiaohe scratched and said, "Where did I know?" The journey was bumpy until nothing happened, from the valley to Huizhou and then to Liangzhou in eastern Sichuan. In half a year, the two brothers finally arrived in eastern Sichuan. Ji Xiaohe said happily, "Brother, hurry up." Ji Xiaozhou said, "What's the rush?" Watching the bustling traffic and bustling crowds in Liangzhou city. Shout out. The sound of shouting refreshes their understanding. The street performers are playing tricks, spitting fire, changing their faces, and making people reluctant to leave. Ji Xiaozhou tugged at Ji Xiaohe's clothes and said, "Hurry up." Although Ji Xiaohe didn't want to part ways, he turned around to look. "I still left with my big brother." According to Duan Hong's account, the two brothers finally found the Yu family. They looked at the courtyard in front of them, their chins falling off their chests. The servant saw the two of them looking shabby and said, "Where did you come from doing business? Let's go, let's go." The two of them smiled and said to Ji Xiaozhou, "Uncle, my brothers and I have only come to Liangzhou from afar for one thing." The servant looked at the dirty errand and said, "Why did the two little brothers come to my moon mansion?" Ji Xiaozhou said, "The two of us came from Bucheng, Huizhou Prefecture, and brought some aged mountain treasures. Do you want to ask the head of the Yu family if they are interested?" The old man chuckled and said, "Get out. Where's that little scammer from? You're not good at learning at a young age." A middle-aged man's voice came from inside the door, "Who is making noise here?" The old man bowed and turned his head, saying, "Two young people from outside the young master's gate went to business. They said they came from Bucheng in Huizhou and brought some mountain treasures from last year." Ji Xiaohe was already muttering in his heart, "Is it uncle? Is it uncle?" Ji Xiaozhou tugged at Ji Xiaohe's clothes and rolled his eyes at him. "Oh. Buizhou. Let them come in and take a look." The voice inside the door said again. The old man didn't dare to slack off and quickly opened the door, bowing and saying, "Please come inside, two bosses." The old man's face changed so quickly that the two of them followed the old servant into the courtyard. Ji Xiaohe looked at the inner courtyard, pavilions and towers, and the moonlight in the lotus pond. TSK thought to himself, "You still have to be from my mother's house." Strolling through a pavilion, a middle-aged man in his early 30s dressed in brocade and luxurious attire, holding a folding fan in hand. Upon closer inspection, it was all ivory, which was considered luxurious. And this person was Yu Duaning, the younger brother of Yu Duanhong. The man looked at the two brothers and felt like they knew each other before saying, "I heard that the two little brothers are from Buizhou. Buizhou is 1,000 miles away from us, Liangzhou." Ji Xiaohe said, "Are you Yu Duaning or Yu Duanxiong?" Upon hearing that these two people could actually be called by their names, Yu Duaning questioned, "I am Yu Duaning, and Yu Duanxiong is my second brother. Do we know each other, young brother?" Yu Duaning looked closely at the two people in front of her and felt even more familiar, so she didn't have time to ask more questions. Ji Xiaohe hugged Yu Duaning and shouted loudly, "Uncle." Ji Xiaozhou also bluntly said, "Uncle." Yu Duaning was startled by the sudden two sounds of her uncle and said, "Uncle. Who is your uncle?" She quickly broke free from the two dark boys in front of her. Ji Xiaozhou said, "My brothers are the sons of Yu Duanhong." Yu Duaning patted her head and said, "Hey. Look at my brain. I just said it looks like I've met before, Uncle Lu. Hurry up and inform second brother, and my dad. Say that big sister's child is here." The old man dared not neglect to climb and roll, shouting, "Master, the young lady and child are here." "Ah. No. It's your grandson and young master." Entering the main hall, Yu Duaning paced back and forth. For the first time, she saw her distant nephew whom she had never met before, and felt very nervous. On the contrary, it was the ease of Ji Xiaohe and Ji Xiaozhou coming together. At this moment, an elderly man in splendid attire arrived at the main hall. Although his eyebrows were stained with snow, his face was rosy and radiant. It must have been a chance encounter with a divine figure who taught him the secret cultivation method. It was the two brothers, their grandfather Yu Qiansong. Yu Duaning pointed to the two brothers and said, "This is Xiao Zhou, this is Xiao He." The two brothers saw the old man kneeling down and said, "Grandpa." Yu Qiansong said, "Hey yo. Hey yo. Get up quickly." At this moment, Yu Duanxiong's voice came. "I heard that the eldest sister's son has arrived. Let me see what the eldest sister's son looks like that I haven't seen in decades." Yu Qiansong said, "Second, pay attention to your words." Ji Xiaohe and Ji Xiaozhou said in unison, "Uncle." Yu Duanxiong said, "Hey, these two kids are not bad. I like them." Yu Qiansong exclaimed in surprise, "Did old San say that you two came from Guizhou City?" Ji Xiaozhou said, "Grandpa and my brothers did indeed come from Guizhou City, Huizhou Prefecture." Yu Qiansong hesitated and said, "Isn't your Ji family in Yunzhou? Why did your two brothers come from the border of Huizhou? It's 1,000 miles away from Huizhou." Ji Xiaohe said, "Grandpa, our family is indeed Yunzhou. It's a long story." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Let me talk." Xiao He. Ji Xiaohe nodded as he looked at his brother. Ji Xiaozhou began to tell, 16 years ago. Ji Xiaozhou and Ji Xiaohe took turns telling the stories of the past few years. When it came to his father sacrificing his life for him, everyone present was already in tears. Yu Qiansong choked up and said, "It's all my fault for being a father." Sigh. 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 As she mentioned that her mother was in danger, everyone clenched their fists. The three of them looked at both children and felt heartbroken. Only after Grandpa Du saved a few people did he relax a little on the branches of the moon. A few autumn cicadas make their final calls. Ji Xiaozhou took out his mother's letter and handed it to Yu Qiansong, saying, "Grandpa, this is the letter my mother gave you." Yu Qiansong wiped away her tears and opened the letter, saying, "Father. When I see the words Ruwa, my daughter is unfilial. She has encountered many difficulties and disasters, and the child doesn't know if her father is safe or if Duanxiong and Duanying's two younger brothers are married. A piece of letter expresses that unfilial children are worried for thousands of miles." After reading the letter, Yu Qiansong sorted out his mood and looked at the two sturdy young men in front of him. He kindly said, "As long as the child is safe." Ji Xiaohe quickly handed the mountain medicinal treasure in the package to Yu Qiansong and said, "Grandpa, this is the mountain medicinal treasure that Grandpa Du collected before his death. There are 80 years of mountain ginseng and 80 years of imperial spirit. These are all our filial piety to you." Yu Qiansong said, Okay. Take these grandpas." Yu Qiansong said, "Second, take Xiaozhou and Xiaohe around the backyard. Third, quickly take a look at what kind of food is in the kitchen." Ji Xiaozhou and his companions followed Yu Duanxiong, and as soon as they set foot in the backyard, they smelled the fragrance of flowers. The luxury level of the backyard was even higher than that of the front yard, with several steps, a gilded tower, and a white jade floor. Even the rockeries are emerald green. Yu Duanxiong said, "You two stinky kids, you haven't seen the world before." Ji Xiaohe said, "What second uncle said is true." Yu Duanxiong said, "I see that you two are much stronger than most young men. Did you learn martial arts from a young age?" Ji Xiaohe said, "That's like eating. You can't stop every day." Yu Duanxiongdao said, "A competition." Ji Xiaohe and Ji Xiaozhou looked at each other for a moment and said, "Isn't it too good?" Suddenly, Yu Qiansong said behind him, "Second brother." Yu Duanxiong trembled one by one. Yu Qiansong said, "Xiaozhou, Xiao He, your second uncle is like this. Except for me, who is an old bone, everyone wants to compete with me." Ji Xiaozhou said, "I can tell that my second uncle is very skilled in martial arts and has become a fool." Ji Xiaohe agreed and said, "Yes. Yu Qiansong said, "Xiaozhou and Xiao He, let's go eat and let Grandpa hear about your journey." The two nodded. After dinner, the two brothers were talking about coming out of the valley after more than 100 days of ups and downs. I met my loved ones and shed tears. Chapter 4. Immortal Encounter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Stories are all about the past, and the future is still being written. The Ji brothers, along with Yu Qiansong, recounted everything that had happened along the way. The speaker had no intention, but the listener had a heart. Ji Xiaozhou said, "Has my grandfather ever heard of a practitioner?" Yu Qiansong said, "There are rumors about cultivators on our Liangzhou road, but now the mountains are all green forests, and cultivators are mostly legends." Ji Xiaohe said, "My mother once said that all the experiences of our Ji family today have the shadow of practitioners participating." Ji Xiaozhou said solemnly, "Yes, my mother once said that my grandfather was destined to be guided by people who practiced martial arts. Generally, our Ji family is not afraid of martial arts practitioners." Yu Qiansong pondered and said, "Good grandson, this practitioner is like a rare bird in a feather, and even more so in these 9 states, he is like a divine dragon in the head but not in the tail." The Ji brothers said together, "Didn't your mother say that there are cultivators in Liangzhou and eastern Sichuan?" Yu Qiansong thought for a moment and said, My grandfather was once a businessman in the Lingshan area of eastern Sichuan when he was young, and I met him with my own eyes." Yu Qiansong recalled, "At that time, my grandfather was also as big as you. That day, he happened to stop on horseback and looked up at a person in the sky, about 20 in shape. His sword flew westward. But it disappeared in the blink of an eye, and my grandfather thought he was dizzy." Ji Xiaohe said, "The two of us are going to Lingshan in eastern Sichuan." Ji Xiaozhou also said, "Our family is in decline, and now the two of us have to seek the rumored method of cultivation and the immortal ability we have cultivated. More than 300 members of our Ji family have been wrongly overturned, and we still have to correct the cause of our survival." After a moment of contemplation, Yu Qiansong said, "Grandpa, I'll find a way for you too. I'll ask you too about it." Ji Xiaozhou said again, "No need, Grandpa. We are here to visit your elderly family on behalf of my mother. It's better for my brothers to come and see you on their own. As long as your elderly family is safe, it's okay." Yu Qiansong hurriedly said to the two of them, "Is your grandson leaving now?" The two nodded and said to Ji Xiaohe, "We have been delayed for several days now. Time waits for no one." Ji Xiaohe and Ji Xiaozhou bid farewell to Yu Qiansong, Yu Duaning, and Yu Duanxiong before continuing their journey to Lingshan in eastern Sichuan. Maikong Mountain is picturesque in golden autumn, with red leaves blooming like fire, clear springs gurgling, and a resounding sound. The wild fruits on the trees are bright red, making people drool at the sight. The Ji brothers were like peers in the painting, but it was a coincidence at this moment. Coincidentally encountering 4 people in a green forest, the man in green stuttered and said, "Up. This road. I drove it, this tree. I planted it. If you want to." Ji Xiaohe smiled and said, "Keep the money for buying roads." The man in green stuttered and said, "Oh. Little boy. Stand up. Dao. Ji Xiaohe smiled and said, "Brother, how much does it cost to let go? I'm in a hurry." The other bandit said, "Oh. He's a gold digger. Give him as much as you have, to ensure your safety along the way." Ji Xiaozhou gave Ji Xiaohe a glance and said, "Hero. My brothers have never thought of this path before. Heroes are here to rob the rich and help the poor. My brothers have come from the Moon Mansion in Liangzhou to go to the Lingshan area for business. There is not much silver on my body, how about you let them go?" The bandit said, "You stinky kid is quite good at speaking. Grandpa is very happy when he talks, not bad. We are robbing the rich to help the poor." Ji Xiaozhou threw a bag of silver and said, "Goodbye, heroes. At this moment, a black man jumped down from the tree and said, "Stop. Did I tell you to leave? Returning to the Yu family in Liangzhou, you look like a crude person and dare to establish a relationship with the Yu family." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Are you?" The man in black said, "If you don't change your name and sit down, don't change your surname." Guan Nanshan. Ji Xiaohe said, "TSK. Have you ever met someone from the Moon Mansion?" The man in black said, "Get to know a little bit." Ji Xiaohe took out a token and said, "The hero has seen it clearly." The man in black looked at him and said, "Indeed, he is from the Moon Mansion. Little brother, please leave." Ji Xiaohe and Ji Xiaozhou exchanged a glance, and the two brothers connected their gaze with one heart, understanding the meaning. They immediately walked slowly. At this moment, the man in black, Guan Nanshan, gave a glance to the group and gestured around their necks. The group understood and wanted to use despicable means. I saw the two brothers take the lead, wielding their swords together like sparks and lightning, their swords flashing like lightning, and the ground was already howling with sorrow. The two of them dusted off the dust on their bodies. Ji Xiaozhou said, "How many heroes? Who can't bear to act like this? You should know that one mountain is higher than another, so let's scatter now. Don't make another mistake and lose your life one day." Ji Xiaohe said, "Hurry up and leave. Take those money and do something serious." The man in black looked at the two people in front of him and said, "Thank you very much for your mercy, young heroes. May I ask your name, young heroes?" Ji Xiaohe said impatiently, "My two surnames are Do, hurry up and leave. Do some serious things." After saying this, he quickly whipped his horse and the dust and smoke fell to the ground, and the people left early. Guan Nanshan sighed and said, "Brothers, hey. As the young hero said, there is a heaven beyond heaven. If we really encounter a master someday, it will be too late for us to regret losing our lives. Joining the green forest was already helpless, why don't we just leave now?" The others nodded one after another and divided their silver coins. A little interlude adds a touch to the journey. Lingshan. 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 The two brothers finally arrived at Lingshan, a small town under the jurisdiction of Lingshan County in Junzi Town, where there is no bustling traffic. A few households and fields were sparse and clear, with farmers carrying welding smoke and working with cows. Calves were jubilant, and the small tiled houses emitted smoke, indicating that it was noon. The two brothers had been here from Liangzhou for more than 20 days when Ji Xiaozhou came to a house and knocked on the door, saying, "Is anyone at home?" The old lady opened the door and said, "Which young master is this?" The two brothers arched their hands and bowed to Ji Xiaozhou, saying, "Grandma and I have come from Liangzhou and are here to disturb and beg for a meal. My wife said, I am an old woman and there is not much surplus food at home. The two young masters, please wait a moment." After speaking, the old lady turned around and took a few bright red persimmons into the house, handing them to her brothers. My wife said, "My family is already old and there is not much surplus food left at home. Let's give these persimmons to the two young masters as a meal." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Grandma, we are also rough people and medicinal farmers. This is just right." The two of them accepted the red fruit, and Ji Xiaohe took out a few pieces of broken silver and handed it to the old woman. My wife hurriedly said, "Oh my. Young people can't use it, can't use it." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Grandma, please accept it. Take it and buy some food. It's perfect for winter." The old lady wiped her tears with one hand and said, "Can you sit down and rest for a moment in the young master's room?" Ji Xiaohe waved his hand and said, "Grandma and I still have to hurry. We've been delayed for a while, so we won't bother anymore. Goodbye." The two of them set off again, and it was already dark. They had arrived at another small town, Lulin Town. Although Lulin Town was adjacent to Junzi Town, half of the area belonged to Yuzhou, and Lulin town was much more prosperous than Junzi town. At least the two of them found an inn. Late at night, the sound of fighting woke up Ji Xiaohe. Ji Xiaohe opened the window and looked out, where an old Taoist was beating several big men. Seeing this scene, Ji Xiaohe was about to take action. Ji Xiaozhou held down Ji Xiaohe and whispered, "Look at this old Taoist." Although he was being surrounded by a few people, his fists and feet couldn't hit the Taoist's vital points. The seemingly coincidental howls and dodges were always evasive. Ji Xiaohe fixed his eyes on it and saw that it was exactly like this. The old Taoist's eyes lit up like a torch and he said in a mournful voice, "Oh, oh. Oh, oh. Did the young man see you holding a hand?" Ji Xiaohe was shocked, even Ji Xiaozhou was instantly stunned. Ji Xiaohe casually threw a fruit pit and hit several people's hands and feet in the Fengshe and Tianjing acupoints. The action instantly numbed their hands and feet, as if they had been electrocuted. A few people were exhausted and dispersed one after another. Ji Xiaozhou said, "I'm afraid I'm a top expert. It seems like I've been beaten, but in reality, I'm just playing with it." Ji Xiaohe also said, "I only pushed open the window a little bit, and he seemed to have noticed me. And I could clearly feel his eyes looking at me." The next morning, as the two of them were preparing to leave the store, an old Taoist brought a banner to them and said, "Golden words and jade words, can the two young brothers make a divination?" The old Taoist's words were accompanied by a foul smell. The two of them covered their mouths and noses, and Ji Xiaozhou said, "No, no, no, we have something important to attend to. Let's not delay." The old Taoist chuckled and said, "The two young brothers are majestic. I know the heavens and the earth, and have a profound understanding of the past and present. If I miss them, I won't be able to find them." Ji Xiaohe also covered his nose and smiled, saying, "The old man has a hexagram." The old Taoist smiled and said, 10 taels of gold and 10 taels of gold." Ji Xiaohe widened his eyes and said dejectedly, "Let's go, brother." The old Taoist said, "Hey, don't rush away, little brother. Thank you for helping me last night. How about I give you a friendship price like this? 10 taels of silver." Ji Xiaohe and his companions were speechless for a moment before moving forward. The old Taoist exclaimed urgently, "Okay, okay. For the sake of the two young heroes saving my life, how about treating the old Taoist to a meal?" Ji Xiaohe said speechlessly, "Old Taoist, although you seem to have something, shouldn't you treat me to eat?" The old Taoist saw that the two of them continued to move forward without stopping and said, "I'm afraid you won't be able to ask for more." Ji Xiaozhou stopped and said, "Let's go." "What are you eating?" The old Taoist smiled and said, "Lulin town is good at cooking river fresh food. It's now the season for river fresh and plump food." "Oh my." The old Taoist was about to drool with just one word. Ji Xiaohe said, "The old man leads the way." The old Taoist teased and said, "Don't call me the old man, call me the Taoist." Arriving at a restaurant in Lulin town called Sandi Xiang, the old Taoist shouted loudly as soon as he entered, "Waiter, bring all the signs of our restaurant to the Taoist." The waiter scolded the old Taoist and said, "Oh, it's you old scammer again. Hurry up and leave. Our store doesn't do your business." The old Taoist said, "Why are you being arrogant, little servant? Believe it or not, Taoist, I will cast a spell to make you mute. Hurry up and serve the dishes." The shopkeeper said, "Saying you're a scammer is just a scammer. If you have real skills, you shouldn't be deceiving others every day." The old Taoist priest's face turned red and said, "Don't talk nonsense, and hurry to serve the dishes. The Taoist priest's greedy insects are crawling out." The shopkeeper saw the Ji brothers and said, "These two young masters, this old Taoist is a well-known scammer from us. I don't know which mountain he came from. He has been eating and drinking in our Lulin town for several years. You two guests, please be careful when walking outside. Seeing the shop assistant's kind words persuading him, Ji Xiaozhou said, "The shop owner doesn't mind. Just give this meal to my brothers." The old Taoist said with a determined expression, "Did you hear that? Hurry up and serve the dishes." The shopkeeper saw that persuasion was useless and stopped talking, so he followed the instructions. A large table of wine and food was served, and as soon as the food was served, this old Taoist seems to have been beaten back to his original form, and he wants to use both hands and feet. After a wild meal of eating and drinking, Ji Xiaohe said anxiously, "Can you leave some for me, old man?" The old Taoist said with a greasy mouth, "Call me Taoist." After being full of alcohol and food, the old Taoist let out a burp and stretched his arms, shouting loudly, "It's great." Ji Xiaozhou said calmly, "Waiter, pay the bill." I saw the shopkeeper whispering something to the waiter. The waiter quickly came over and said, "How many gentlemen have finished eating?" Ji Xiaozhou said, "The restaurant has delicious food." The shopkeeper smiled and said, "That's natural. 3 gentlemen, your supply and demand for silver patterns this time is 186 taels." Ji Xiaohe was stunned and said, "Black shop." The shop assistant awkwardly said, "No, it's not. This old Taoist has been owed by the shop for 3 years. At this moment, the old Taoist was about to escape with a cat, but he was caught by Ji Xiaozhou. The old Taoist awkwardly smiled and said, "Hee, I can't blame you for coming too late." "Who made you two come too late?" Ji Xiaohe said, "Brother, give it to me." Coming out of the 3 Drops fragrant restaurant, Ji Xiaozhou felt a pang of pain. The old Taoist smirked and said, "You 2 young heroes shouldn't be like this after a meal, right?" I saw that the old Taoist's hands were tightly tied by the brothers. Ji Xiaohe said, "As for, that's too much." The old Taoist said, 2 miles south of the town, there is a mountain where 2 young heroes want to know. Ji Xiaozhou said, "Do you know what we are asking for?" The old Taoist confidently said, "That's natural. Monks don't lie." Ji Xiaozhou said again, "Then please trouble the senior to lead the way." The old Taoist hurriedly said, "You little brat, are you begging for help like this?" He gestured for the rope tied to his hand. Ji Xiaohe said, "Old man, don't play tricks." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Let's untie him, brother." Ji Xiaohe untied the rope, and the old Taoist felt a surge of blood in his hand. In an instant, the old Taoist turned into a burst of smoke, and from a distance, the old Taoist's voice came. "Stinky kid called me Taoist. I won't play with you anymore, Ji Xiaohe stuttered and said, "Brother. Cultivator. Cultivator." Ji Xiaozhou looked into the distance without saying a word and said, "Let's go where the Taoist said." Ji Xiaohe could only nod helplessly. Digging the clouds to search for the immortal path, the red maple and white crane sleep. The cold frost hangs on the pine and cypress trees, accompanying them on a journey along the Sichuan road. Chapter 5. Destiny Comes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The 2 of them traveled south from Lulin town and soon saw dozens of hills, which were already within the territory of Yuzhou. Ji Xiaohe said, "Brother, look around. There are dozens of mountains, and we won't be looking for them one by one, will we?" Ji Xiaozhou said, "Find it." Ji Xiaohe dripped a few drops of sweat on his forehead and said, He went up and down the mountain from morning till night. Ji Xiaohe collapsed on the ground and said wearily, "Brother, do you think this old man is not playing with us?" Ji Xiaozhou also hesitated slightly and said, "Most likely not." The next day, after their morning exercise, Ji Xiaohe said, "Brother, are we still looking for it today?" Ji Xiaozhou said, "Nature." Ji Xiaohe said, "Most likely this old man is playing tricks on us. There's only one mountain left in front of him." Although reluctant to speak, he still followed his brother up the mountain. After the second descent, he saw a small hill behind the mountain, and upon closer inspection, it seemed like there was a dilapidated temple. Ji Xiaohe called out, "Brother, take a look." Ji Xiaozhou said, "I see." Ji Xiaohe said, "Do you think that old man doesn't know where to say it? This is also called a mountain." Ji Xiaozhou said, "Go and take a look." The two of them climbed onto this small hill, and Ji Xiaohe shouted, "Is anyone there?" At this moment, a familiar voice came and said, "How many times did the stinky kid call me an old man from yesterday to today? Is it difficult to call me a Taoist?" Seeing the disheveled old Taoist Ji Xiao, he playfully say, "Oh. Is that you, the old man? I thought you were referring to another expert." The old Taoist said, "Am I not an expert? Am I not like an expert? Am I not an expert?" Ji Xiaohe said, "It's not like that." The old Taoist exclaimed angrily, "You." Ji Xiaozhou said, "I apologize for your impoliteness. The senior has guided my brothers to come here. I believe the senior must be the cultivator my brothers are looking for, right?" The old Taoist said, "Hey. Stop it. I asked you to look for me on that mountain, not the two of you." Ji Xiaohe said, "Hey. Old man, are you saying you're not fooling us? We've searched for dozens of mountains from yesterday to today, but there's nothing extraordinary like you." The old Taoist said again, "Call me Taoist, stinky kid." Ji Xiaozhou said solemnly, "Senior, as you said, there is indeed no such thing." The old Taoist said, "That's because you didn't put in your heart. As long as you put in your heart, you will naturally encounter it." Ji Xiaozhou bowed and said, "Believe in the senior. Let's search again." The old Taoist said, "Go, go. Don't delay the Taoist's lunch break." The two of them set off again, and a conversation came from the temple. "Hey. I said you old mischievous kid should be able to handle it." The old Taoist smiled and said, "Don't say these two people are really suitable to be the successors of the two of us, bald donkey." The other person turned out to be a monk, named Guanzhou Monk and Qianlong Immortal. Seeing that Guanzhou Monk was also dressed in tattered monk clothes and holding a floating dust in his hand, he could barely tell that he was once white, slightly cleaner than Qianlong Immortal. There was really only one thing left. Master Guangzhou said, "Old rascal, can your mouth not smell as bad as you do?" The Qianlong Immortal smelled his Taoist robe and said, "Do I smell very bad? Why didn't I smell it?" Master Guangzhou said, "What odor can you smell when your nostrils are stuffed with sheep manure and eggs?" Qianlong Zhenren reacted and said, "Bald donkey. Do you think you're very fragrant? I don't even want to talk about you, you're like a stone in the toilet." Master Guangzhou smiled and said, all right. Let's not be poor anymore." 3 days later, the two of them arrived at the small temple again. Ji Xiaohe shouted loudly, "Old man, come out. Old man." Qianlong Immortal said with sleepy eyes, "Oh my. Don't make any noise, your ears are going to deafen you." Ji Xiaohe shouted loudly in the ear of Qianlong Immortal, "Scammer." Qianlong Immortal said, "Stinky kid, call me Taoist. Taoist." At this moment, the Guanzhou monk in the temple walked out and said, "All right, that's it, old rascal. Don't mess with these two younger generations anymore." Ji Xiaohe saw Guangzhou and Shangdao, "You're not with this old man, are you?" Master Guangzhou smiled and said, No, we are all under the same roof. You see, the poor monk is a monk, he is a Taoist, so naturally he is not the same person. Qianlong Zhenren said, "You're right, bald donkey." Ji Xiaozhou arched his hand and said, "Senior. I have searched twice with my younger brother. Although these 10 or so mountains are not big, there is indeed nothing." Qianlong Zhenren said, "Didn't you happen to find it?" Ji Xiaozhou pondered and said, "What does the senior mean?" Qianlong Immortal chuckled inwardly and said, "That's the answer." Ji Xiaohe said, "Brother, I just said this old man is playing with us. Did you reply?" Ji Xiaozhou suddenly felt his old face heat up. Guangzhou and Xiangdao said, looking for spring all day without seeing spring, my sandals have broken through the clouds at the top of the mountain. When I return, I smell the plum blossoms, and spring is already very strong on the branches. Ji Xiaozhou said, what does the master mean? Master Guangzhou said, have you ever looked around at the mountaintop, little benefactor? Ji Xiaozhou said, I hurried up and down the mountain, without the intention of seeing the beautiful mountain scenery. Xianlongzhenren said, this child is so brainless. Monk, please don't mess with your Buddhist teachings. Ji Xiaozhou said, so according to what the senior said. Xianlongzhenren said, we're not even showing off. This monk is the person you're looking for. The Qianlong Immortal made a thunderous sound in his stomach and said, without further ado, Dao Yi, our 5 organs temple needs some offerings. Ji Xiaohe said, hey old man, don't you have any skills except for eating, sleeping, and pranking? The Qianlong Immortal grabbed it with his empty hand and a chicken leg appeared in his hand. Ji Xiaohe's eyes lit up and he said, wow, old man, how did you do it? Ji Xiaozhou was taken aback when he saw it. Although the Qianlong Immortal was unreliable, his skill was not something that ordinary people could do. Guangzhou and Xiangdao said, little benefactor, this is a small technique of the Taoist sect, not surprising. Ji Xiaohe surrounded the Qianlong Immortal like a little bee and said, Taoist, Taoist. How did you do it? Teach me. Teach me. Qianlong Immortal hummed and stopped paying attention to this annoying young man. Ji Xiaozhou respectfully said, Master, the 2 of us have come here to seek out the rumored cultivator and learn the immortal skills. Master Guangzhou smiled and said, ha ha ha. Little benefactor. Life is all about cultivation, and you practice to seek revenge, right? Ji Xiaozhou said, Master Mingjian, learning that cultivation method for the younger generation is indeed a way to avenge the family. Guangzhou and Xiangdao said, when has the retribution come? As a righteous benefactor, you need to let go of the 3,000 troubles in the mortal world. Everything has a cause and effect. Ji Xiaozhou thought to himself, does this master mean to let me enter Buddhism? Guangzhou and Xiangdao said, don't doubt, don't think. Ji Xiaozhou knelt down and said, Master, please accept me as my disciple. Master Guangzhou said happily, I have been waiting for you for 16 years. Ji Xiaozhou puzzled and said, 16 years. Guangzhou and Xiangdao said, exactly. 16 years ago, I realized Zen and once wandered in the Pure Land. As shown by my Buddha, here will be my successor. Ji Xiaozhou said, so my younger brother. Master Guangzhou said again, he has his own chance. After speaking, he looked at the Qianlong Immortal. Ji Xiaozhou said, what do you mean by a master? Master Guangzhou nodded. Ji Xiaohe watched as the Qianlong Immortal gnawed on the chicken leg and swallowed the drain, saying, Master, do you want to drink some water? Xianlongzhenren said, what's up, kid? You're not called an old man anymore. Ji Xiaohe said, I have eyes but no eyes, and I don't know what is great. Don't blame me, Taoist priest. Xianlongzhenren said, do I look like a master? Ji Xiaohe's head pecked at the rice like a little chicken and said, like. You are the true immortal in my heart. In the eyes of the boy, you are the giant of the immortal way. Qianlong Immortal enjoyed Ji Xiaohe's seductive words and said, I see you have some wisdom, so I'll leave you as the book boy next to the Taoist. Ji Xiaohe said, ah. Just a book boy. Xianlongzhenren said, why isn't it like that? But I see that the young hero has a majestic and handsome demeanor, so he is not suitable for being a poor scholar. Ji Xiaohe nodded and said, how can I be a book boy? Qianlong Immortal said, well. I think young Xia is more suitable for professions with strong martial arts skills, such as standing like a pine tree and holding a sword. No matter who comes to me, I'll let young Xia guard it first. Ji Xiaohe said angrily, Master, are you saying that I am more suitable to see the gate? Xianlongzhenren said, did I say that? Guangzhou and Xiangdao said, don't play with me, old rascal. I'll take your place. Xianlongzhenren said, hey. Stop it, bald donkey. Aren't you trying to reach into my Immortal's pocket? Master Guangzhou said, Amitabha Buddha, it's neither true nor false. This son has a shallow Buddhist connection. Ji Xiaohe said, actually, you can also have a slightly stronger Buddhist connection with me. Xianlongzhenren said, stinky kid, why do you want to betray your sect? Ji Xiaozhou couldn't help but chuckle. Ji Xiaohe said, did I worship you as a teacher? Did you accept me as an apprentice? Although the immortal Qianlong was covered with dirt, he could see that blush. The immortal Qianlong said, why? You are my disciple today, why? The bald donkey should put away your dirty hands. Ji Xiaohe turned his eyes and said, I didn't agree again. Xianlongzhenren exclaimed urgently, nah. Stinky kid, don't be disrespectful. Ji Xiaohe said, it's up to you to take in your apprenticeship. I'd better consider it, master. Xianlong Immortal spread his palm and said, got it. Got it. Got it. Good disciple, this is the 5 elements gathering spirit pill. Eating it can wash tendons and cut marrow, and it is a rare spiritual medicine for beginners to pass through the Ren and Du meridians. Ji Xiaohe picked up a bottle and sniffed it, saying, not bad. 50-year fire mushrooms, 40-year one-fruiting oolong vine fruits, 20-year fish dragon bile. 50-year red goldenrod, and the most powerful, 60-year earth spirit pearl. After careful refining for 7 to 40.9 days, you have made this pill, right? Xianlongzhenren exclaimed in surprise, how do you know these heavenly and earthly treasures? Do you also know the art of alchemy? Ji Xiaohe gave a white glance and said, I don't know what you're talking about as heavenly materials and earthly treasures, let alone alchemy techniques. It's just that my nose is more agile. Then I made a wild guess. Ha ha ha. After being teased by Ji Xiaohe, the hidden dragon Immortal couldn't speak for a moment. After all, it was indeed as he said. The light pearl Immortal couldn't believe it and said, little benefactor, you know how rare these aged precious medicines are. Ji Xiaozhou said straightforwardly, Master, in fact, I can also smell these. I have been living in the valley with my younger brother since childhood, and these medicines are very common to us. The Qianlong Immortal's eyes lit up and he said, very common. Just the oolong vine fruit that bears fruit every 40 years, you actually say it's very common. I have been wandering around for more than 70 years, and I know what is abundant on all continents. Ji Xiaozhou said, these medicinal herbs are indeed common in the valley where my younger brother and I have lived since childhood. We can eat oolong vine fruits every year. Ji Xiaohe also smiled and said, yes, it's just an ordinary small wild fruit. What's so surprising about it? Qianlong Immortal thought to himself, I haven't seen such an arrogant child in my many years of cultivation. The oolong vine fruit is actually an ordinary small wild fruit. It's shameless to eat it every year. Qianlong Immortal cleared his throat and said, since this thing is ordinary, I need to give you a ruthless character. You must have never seen this before. After finishing speaking, he took out a jade bone folding fan and proudly said, this is a relic left by my ancestor when he attained enlightenment. Its name is Xian Su Hua Yi. Not to mention you, even this bald donkey has never heard of it. Ji Xiaohe looked at the jade fan, emitting a faint blue light that made him feel relaxed and happy. At first glance, he knew it was not an ordinary product. Ji Xiaohe said, this thing is very good, it suits my temperament. Before he could finish speaking, he picked up the jade fan and prepared to open it. He was paralyzed like being struck by lightning and said, there. 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 There's electricity. His hair stood upright, his face was burnt black, and he exhaled thick smoke. Except for Master Guangzhu, both of the two people present were laughing with cramps in their stomachs. Ji Xiaohe said, "Old man, are you playing with me?" Master Guangzhu restrained his mind and said, "Little benefactor, I don't know. Although I haven't seen this item before, it is indeed an extraordinary item." Qianlong Immortal arrogantly said, "Nonsense, this is a treasure left by our ancestors when they gained enlightenment. I must have kept it properly. However, in my heart," he said, "if it weren't for me not being able to use it, would you still want to rely on it?" Ji Xiaohe said, "It's a good thing, take it." After speaking, his body trembled twice. Qianlong Immortal, however, was a bit reluctant and said, "If you take my treasure, then you will be my successor. How should my disciple treat my master?" With a hint from the Qianlong Immortal, Ji Xiaohe said, "Oh my! As an apprentice, I must respect my master." Ji Xiaozhou calmly opened the package, took out several small packages and said, "Master, this is my little brother's intention." Before he opened it, he could smell the fragrance of medicine overflowing. It can be seen that the things behind the cloth must not be mortal. Master Guangzhu hurriedly said, "These Buddhist objects are all insignificant and cannot enter the eyes of real people. It's better to keep them away." Ji Xiaozhou awkwardly said, "Okay." Qianlong Immortal pulled his face and said, "Wait a minute. I haven't heard of a way to collect water before, Taoist. Let's keep the things." Ji Xiaohe hurriedly said, "Oh, old man, it's not surprising that he has these 3 melons and 2 dates. Come and let me show you some rare things." After finishing speaking, Ji Xiaohe gave his elder brother a wink and opened the package he had carried with him. Apart from tens of thousands of taels of silver bills, there were also many mountain treasures and wild medicines, all of which were old and old. Qianlong Immortal searched for Ji Xiaohe's package and said, "What are you doing with so much money at this young age? I'll keep it for you first, and this 100-year-old Polygonum multiflorum. 80-year-old fire Ji." Looking at the precious medicine in his eyes, even Guangzhu monk swallowed his saliva. Where to find the fairy tale? 13 searches in the 9 provinces. Stepping on a horse for 60,000 miles, the mud falls to the east of Sichuan, and there are people from the mountains. Chapter 6. 3 years and 3 years. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2 teenagers, 3 sticks of green incense, 4 people in the same world. A simple apprenticeship ceremony, 2 pairs of mentors and disciples, the wheel of fate, began to run from this moment. Ji Xiaozhou asked, "Master and Senior, my brothers have both been appointed as teachers. Can you help me clarify the doubts between my brothers? Fate has its cause and effect, and in the future, one will find its solution," said Master Guangzhu with a kind eyebrow. Ji Xiaohe said, "But the 2 of us still want to know the reason." Qianlong Zhenren said, "What the monk said is as if he didn't say it. Ask him why." Master Guangzhu paused for a moment and said, I can also be considered a Taoist monk." Qianlong Zhenren said, "That's all for you. It's better for the Taoist to talk to the 2 younger generations." Qianlong Zhenren said, "For the past 110 years, the world has been relatively peaceful. Looking back on 60 years ago when I saw my peers during the poor Taoist sword parade, I have practiced all kinds of silence and concealment in these decades. The world of practice seems to have disappeared from the world without any warning, and I have begun to travel to various states to search for clues, but it has not been successful." Ji Xiaohe pretended to be profound and said, "It seems that the road to this immortal is heavy and far ahead." Qianlong Immortal's sugar-fried chestnuts covered Xiaohe's forehead, instantly creating a big bag. Qianlong Immortal said, "Just your little one, you haven't even left your bazi." Returning to the immortal. Ji Xiaozhou said, "My mother once said that when the Ji family in Yunzhou collapsed overnight, there were traces of cultivators." Master Guangzhu said solemnly, "In this way, the hand of conspiracy has reached out to ordinary people." Master Guangzhu said, "My Buddhist sect was originally a peaceful place, just as my friend said. It was the same many years ago, and a group of Buddhist friends mysteriously disappeared without any warning. Guangzhou said again, 16 years ago, I was a poor monk who meditated and wandered in ecstasy. My Buddha once showed me that Bodhi was sailing on boats, and the Buddha's light was shining on the Lingshan mountain. Therefore, although I have been searching for Lingshan for many years without success, I believe it is only the time of the day that has not yet arrived. So I practiced meditation here and waited for the arrival of the destined one. Qianlong said, the destiny of the two of you is predetermined, and the secret of heaven cannot be revealed. Ji Xiaozhou said, I won't ask any more questions from the younger generation. Qianlong said, the dark clouds will eventually dissipate, and when the wind rises depends on the fate of the two young men. Guangzhou and Xiangdao said, friend, I'll say goodbye to you this time. Qianlong said, take the disciples and leave. Let's talk about the past again. Master Guangzhou took a step with Ji Xiaozhou and left a voice 100 yards away, saying, Amitabha Buddha. Goodbye, my friend. Ji Xiaohe looked at Ji Xiaozhou, who had been following his brother since childhood. I feel very sad in my heart, who could have thought that the two would separate. Qianlong patted Ji Xiaohe's shoulder and said, let's go. Ji Xiaohe's eyes moistened as he said, where are we going? Qianlong said, go eat. Aren't you hungry? Immediately, the two of them let out a few muffled thunder, and Ji Xiaohe said, I don't have an appetite. Qianlong didn't care about him. He grabbed Ji Xiaohe's arm and turned around before arriving outside the San Di Xiang restaurant in Lulin town. He dragged Ji Xiaohe in and said, let's take this meal as a teacher. The familiar scene, the familiar waiter, saw the Qianlong Immortal and said, oh. Have you found the main master, Taoist? Qianlong said, stop talking nonsense and serve the dishes. Let's have a tough meal. The waiter saw Ji Xiaohe by his side and knew that this young man was a wealthy owner. Without any ink stains, the food and drinks will be served in a moment. What arrived was the devouring of the Qianlong Immortal. The Qianlong Immortal said, I'll take you to a good place, kid. Ji Xiaohe was in a bad mood and was too lazy to speak. He just replied, oh, and let the Qianlong Immortal wander around. Yuzhou. This sparsely populated territory is filled with towering mountains and ridges everywhere. A few hundred miles further south, the two of them found several peaks covered in snow. In early winter, auspicious snow arrived as promised. It seems that next year is a good omen. At the foot of a lush green mountain, the Qianlong Immortal no longer uses his divine powers, but instead carries a devout heart and a disciple named Ji Xiaohe. Hiking up. Ji Xiaohe sorted out his emotions and said, Master, have we arrived yet? Qianlong said, nonsense. Ji Xiaohe said again, why not use your divine power to teleport up? Qianlong said, this is the true lineage of our sect. Our sect's founder once achieved enlightenment and became immortal here. Using his divine powers is disrespectful to him. Ji Xiaohe nodded. This mountain is called Shenyuan Peak, and the top of the mountain is Yuzhen Rock. It is rumored that Guanggaozi, the founder of the Qianlong Immortal, became an immortal here. This mountain looks ordinary from a distance, and it looks just as ordinary up close. There are no towering mountains, no perilous twists and turns. At the top, apart from the dilapidated Jinwu Hall, there are several dilapidated tiled houses. No one can even tell that there used to be a Taoist lineage of ancestors on Shenyuan Peak who became immortals here. In the early winter, the warm sun shines on my personality, making me feel comfortable. The Qianlong Immortal, along with Ji Xiaohe, has reached the top of the Yuzhen Rock. The two of them hastily tidied up the Jinwu Hall, and the smell of decaying mold, which had been in disrepair for a long time, occupied their hearts and minds. The two of them lit an incense stick and Qianlong Immortal said, young man, we are already masters and disciples. Today, I have given you the Taoist name Wu Wei as the head of the Yuzhen Rock Daozhen lineage. Ji Xiaohe said, thank you very much, Master. Daojian disciple Wu Wei pays his respects to Patriarch Sanqin. Xianlong touched his long beard and said, Wu Wei. After entering the door of cultivation, everything is natural. I hope you can do everything without violating it. Wu Wei said, everything is done, and nothing goes against it. Xianlong said, everything is meant to be done, and everything can be done. Nothing goes against it, and everything must not violate the heavenly way. Wu Wei said, please remember, disciple. Looking at Ji Xiaozhou again, Master Guangzhu brought Ji Xiaozhou to Yenzhou and headed west in just a few breaths. I could hear the sound of the Brahman bell, and this was the West Buddha Valley in Yenzhou. The mist was shrouded in the valley, and I could see the chanting of Buddhist scriptures and chanting of the solemnity of my Buddha. A few Buddhist lamps in the valley sway with the wind, and the Buddha's precious appearance is dignified and centered. A monk saluted the Buddha and said, I am in the midst of my pure cultivation, and I am ready to feel the breath of my fellow Buddha. I then lit a lamp on the valley path to welcome my fellow Buddha. Master Guangzhu bowed back and said, Amitabha Buddha, senior brother, you have the courtesy. The monk looked at Ji Xiaozhou and said, this son has a deep Buddhist connection, and his Buddhist roots have been planted early. It seems that the cause and effect have arrived, senior brother. Ji Xiaozhou said, Master, you are polite. Guangzhu and Shangdao said, Xiaozhou, this is the light transmission Master Sato. Ji Xiaozhou nodded devoutly. Master Chuandeng said, Senior brother Guangzhu, this son should be senior brother Zhengji Bodhi Boding. Guangzhu and Shangdao said, as shown by my Buddha, I have been waiting for more than 16 years for the Buddha's light to reappear. This is the bitterness of my Buddha. Master Chuandeng said, Amitabha Buddha. After bathing and changing clothes, the fragrance of incense made Ji Xiaozhou feel even more refreshed. He didn't know what Bodhi Boding was, nor did he know what Buddha's light was shining. I only know that my direction is right at this moment. In front of the Tathagata treasure, 6 monks sat quietly on the altar. Ji Xiaozhou knelt and stood, passed the light to the master, and held a sand bowl to hold clean water. At this time, the light pearl monk had also changed his clothes and become pure. Standing next to the teacher passing the light. The Buddhist bell rang, and Master Randang said, in the cold of the year, one should seek virtue, which is the essence of one's destiny. Disciples Satya and Guangzhu, who are taught by layman monks, are taught the 3 precepts of Buddha and enjoy the wonderful Dharma of the Tathagata. 3 drops of pure water touched Ji Xiaozhou's forehead, and he suddenly felt the clarity of the spiritual platform, with the sound of the Brahma beside his ears becoming even more intimate. Guangzhu and Shangdao said, disciple Ji Xiaozhou, now converted to shaman. He is given the Dharma name Mingchan, who can wield a wise sword, subdue lions and tigers, and overcome the suffering of people. Amitabha Buddha. The monks simultaneously said, Amitabha Buddha. Purify the water and clear the spiritual platform, only by reciting the wisdom of all the Dharma. Ming Chan kowtowed and thanked his teacher, feeling as light as a swallow. Master Guangzhu said, Ming Chan, let me introduce you to the Dharma Vajra wheel Maitreya. Dharma King Kong said, senior brother, you are polite. Then he said, this is the preceptor Guangmi. The monk said, Amitabha Buddha, senior brother, you are polite. Then he said, these are the 4 senior brothers, Xia monk and Hui Guang Hui Shi Hui Zhen. Ming Chan worshipped and performed Buddhist rituals one by one. The master passed the lantern and said, friend Ming Chan, after paying respects, let's find a peaceful place for ourselves. Ming Chan looked at the precious statues of Buddhas and chanted, Amitabha Buddha. Guangzhu and Shangdao said, my disciple Ming Chan, let me take you with me. Ming Chan nodded silently. Master Guangzhu took out a string of Buddha beads and said, this Buddha bead is gifted to you by my teacher. When you are troubled, holding this object has great mysteries. Ming Chan said, thank you very much, Master. Master Guangzhu brought Ming Chan to a rudimentary cottage and said, this used to be where my master Qingxiu was, but now you can Qingxiu here. Ming Chan didn't say much and began to meditate on the Do. Master Guangzhu said, "You can freely read the scriptures inside the room. This book, Mingqi Xingong, can be read when you have a chance." After leaving it inside the room, he no longer disturbed the monk. Guangzhu bid farewell to his fellow Buddhas one by one and said, "Dear Buddhas, I am here to cultivate. Thank you all for your help. I have important matters to attend to this time. I will not bother you anymore. Amitabha. Amitabha Buddha." Shifua Valley is once again calm. It's like nothing happened. Xianlong Zhenren said, "Wu Wei. The path of cultivation can be described as a long way ahead, don't try to take shortcuts." Wu Wei said, "Oh, I know master." The Qianlong Immortal made a sugar-fried chestnut cap and said on his forehead, "This is our holy land, I can't do this." Wu Wei said, "Master, since I am from the same lineage of Taoism, do we also have differences in Taoism?" Xianlong Zhenren said, "My Dao Wu, Dao Xian, Dao Ling, and Dao Zhen are originally one family. Although they are separate schools, they are actually promoting their strengths." Wu Wei said again, "What are we really good at?" Xianlong Zhenren said, "The Dao and Wu lineage prioritize martial arts, and those who are skilled in martial arts value their physique and believe that it is innate strength. The Dao and Xian lineage observe feng shui and stars, and are good at divining and practicing qi formations. The Dao and Ling lineage is good at starting spiritual talismans and alchemy. Our Dao and Zhen lineage combines the strengths of various schools." Wu Wei thought to himself, "I really can't see the old man's serious appearance outside." Xianlong Zhenren said, "Don't think that I don't know what you're saying in your heart. Grandmaster is too lazy to argue with you when I'm in poverty." Wu Wei said, "I understand my mistake." Qianlong Immortal took out a dilapidated book and said, "This is the Xuanzi Heart Sutra. It's a great way to cultivate and learn the mysteries of the true method as soon as possible." Wu Wei said, "Ah. Self-cultivation." Qianlong Immortal once again exclaimed, "Master leads the way in, and cultivation relies on individuals. Do I still need to teach such a simple principle?" Qianlong Immortal then said, "Good students cultivate, and as a teacher, I will conduct periodic inspections." Wu Wei said, "Hey. Master. Isn't that right?" Xianlong Zhenren said, "Don't be lazy, and don't want to go down the mountain. I have imposed a ban on you. As long as you have the idea of running around, you will enjoy the thunder punishment. Alright, I'm going to taste the fresh river in Lulin town." After that, I went straight down the mountain. Wu Wei sighed helplessly and said, "Hey. Let me first take a look at the mystery of this Xuanzi Heart Sutra. At the beginning, it is the heart study section. To gather the deficiency of the Tao, clear the deficiency, and clear the 5 qi. The 5 qi gather in the seed to build a foundation. On the next page, it is gathering the sea in moving clouds, removing turbid ice muscles, flowing like a stream, supplementing the 5 qi, and returning the 5 grains. It is to clear the valley." Wu Wei no longer flipped back and thought to himself, "Master, there is a reminder not to be greedy for work. The realm of cultivation is divided into building a foundation, breaking through valleys, practicing qi, using golden pills, practicing the primordial baby, exiting the body, distracting the mind, achieving great success, and reaching the realm of emptiness. Each level has different realms, and each stage is divided into 3 stages. Front, middle, and back. Then close your eyes and concentrate. Although it is difficult to discern the Dharma for a moment, inaction does not lead to greed for merit." Despite repeated failures, Wu Wei still found the trick, with the help of the Qianlong Immortal. In December of Yuzhou, the forests show a clear color. The heavy snow covered the pine and cypress on the Yuzhan rock, but did not cover the Tao heart. 3 years and 3 years, the youth remains the same, the old way remains the same, the Buddha remains the same, and the person who understands Zen still remains the same. Yesterday the sea was not in the pool, but today the swallows and sparrows see the sea wide. There is no action, there is action, and there is no action. Chapter 7. Journey Down the Mountain. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In early summer, warblers and swallows sing, and 3 fragrant restaurants in Lulin town. A young man was wearing a grey Taoist robe, with an old Taoist beside him. If it weren't for the 2 wearing Taoist robes, ordinary people would have thought they were 2 beggars. The 2 are Wu Wei and Xianlong Immortals. Xianlong Immortal said, "You have excellent talent, but in 6 years, you have already reached the golden elixir. Although your martial arts are fast, you should always remember to review the past and learn new things. However, when you reach the golden elixir in this cultivation realm, you will encounter thunder calamity, and you will suffer thunder calamity every time you reach the next level." Wu Wei has faded away from the frivolity at the beginning, although there are occasional exaggerated words, it is a bit more mature and stable than 6 years ago. Wu Wei said, "Practicing can increase one's lifespan. It's against the heavens, and encountering lightning tribulations is both a test and a fear." Xianlong Zhenren nodded in satisfaction as he watched Wu Wei. Wu Wei said, "Wu Wei's success today is also the result of my master. I, Yuzhen Rock, gather the spirits of the mountains, and only then did I have what I have today." Xianlong Immortal nodded happily and said, "You have a bit of conscience." However, in his heart, he said, "I'm afraid you're not a genius that happens once in 1,000 years. In just 6 years, it's the late stage of Xingqi cultivation. As a teacher, you've already turned pale in Xingqi. Are you a monster?" Immediately, the Qianlong Immortal said, "Hurry up, hurry up. I can't bear being greedy for insects, master." Wu Wei said, "Old man, aren't you tired of eating the dishes from the 3 Drops fragrant restaurant for so many years? Look at how fat you have become now." The Qianlong Immortal said, "The stinky kid forgot our sex rules as soon as he came down the mountain, right?" Wu Wei trembled and said, "I dare not. After all, I have enjoyed the techniques of the divine dragon Immortal many times in recent years." The waiter saw the Qianlong Immortal enter the shop and said, "Oh, Taoist. Are you still the same today?" The Qianlong Immortal impatiently said, "I've been tough on the Taoist today. I haven't been here for a few months. The Taoist's 5 organs temple is already starving and thirsty." The waiter bowed and said, "All right. We'll be here soon." Seeing the hungry tiger-like momentum of the Qianlong Immortal, Wu Wei quickly said, "Master, can you consider your own image? At least you are also a famous practitioner in the world." Qianlong Zhenren said, "He, who knows except for you?" Qianlong Zhenren said, "Wu Wei. You can travel alone when you go down the mountain this time. I can't help you anything. You still have to hone your own bottlenecks." Wu Wei said, "Well, I think so too." Qianlong Zhenren said, "Stinky kid, what I'm saying is serious." Wu Wei said, "Oh my. Master. I know." Qianlong Zhenren said, "I have other important matters to attend to as a teacher this time." Wu Wei asked repeatedly, "Where is Master going?" The Qianlong Immortal said, "Let's go from all directions." After speaking, he took out a yellow talisman and a brocade bag, saying, "This brocade bag can only be opened when you encounter difficulties. This spiritual talisman is a life-saving talisman left for you by the teacher, and it should not be used when your life is threatened." After speaking, it disappeared and disappeared. Wu Wei put away his things and was about to leave when the waiter stopped him and said, "Master, you haven't paid yet." Wu Wei said in a moment of silence, How much is it?" The waiter smiled and said, "A total of 186 taels of silver." Wu Wei's jaw dropped in shock and he said, "Hey, isn't it? It's 180.6 taels again." Wu Wei cursed in his heart, how could the old man eat so well? He owes 180.6 taels. The waiter said, "This is what the Taoist has been doing on credit for the past few years plus today. Even Wu Wei's toes can scratch through the floor." As early as a few years ago, the Qianlong Immortal had already plundered all the valuable items on his body, and now everything is empty. Wu Wei awkwardly said, "Can the waiter also owe me this meal?" The waiter shouted, "Shopkeeper. This stinky Taoist is preparing to eat the king's meal." At this moment, a man in his 40s entered the store, dressed in strong attire and looking very capable. Wu Wei looked at him as if he had seen him before, and his eyes turned to run to the man, saying, "Has this big brother ever recognized me?" The man looked at the young man in front of him and shook his head, saying, "It seems like he hasn't seen it before." Wu Wei said, "You are Guan Nanshan. It's okay if you don't remember me. I remember you." Guan Nanshan scratched his head and said, "Have we really seen each other before?" Wu Wei said, 6 years ago, you were at Maikong Mountain." After careful consideration, Guan Nanshan looked at the young Taoist in front of him and said, "Are you the Duke Du of the Yu family?" Wu Wei said, "It's me." Guan Nanshan smiled and said, 6 years ago, my brothers and I, thanks to Duke Du's righteousness, have achieved what we are today." Wu Wei awkwardly said, "The past is not worth mentioning, but I have some trouble today." I don't know if it's convenient for Brother Guan." Guan Nanshan smiled and said, "Is Du Gongzi shy in his pocket?" Although someone said it out, Wu Wei blushed to the point of his ear and said awkwardly, "Indeed, may I ask if it's convenient for Brother Guan? Can I borrow 200 taels from you?" Guan Nanshan smiled and said, "No borrowing." Wu Wei is even more awkward. "Ah." Guan Nanshan said, "You're joking. Du Gongzi's past kindness is nothing more than 200 taels." After saying this, he handed a 1,000 taels silver note to Wu Wei and said, "Du Gongzi, even if your meal money goes to Guan Mao's head, you can take these 1,000 taels." Wu Wei said, "Brother Guan, you're welcome. I'll take this money for now. If Brother Guan comes to Liangzhou Prefecture one day and obtains it from the Yu family, he'll say it's borrowed by Xiao He. Naturally, he'll give it to you." Guan Nanshan said, "Guan is a person from the lower 9 streams and cannot climb any big steps." In the past, Duke Du advised Guan to reform himself, and Guan also knew that the kindness of a drop of water should be repaid by a gushing spring. Wu Wei said, "Brother Guan, we don't need to chat anymore. I wonder where Brother Guan is going this time." Guan Nanshan said, "Guan is about to travel to Liangzhou." Wu Wei said, "That's just right. Why don't we go together?" Guan Nanshan said, "That's great. It's just that Guan is transporting merchant goods. I'm afraid it will delay the young master." Wu Wei said, "It's okay, it's okay." An awkward encounter between the two. Two people with vastly different ages talked happily along the way. Wu Wei followed Guannan Mountain and arrived at Junzi Town, where the sun had already set in the west. Upon arriving at Junzi Town, Wu Wei remembered the old lady who gave them persimmons 6 years ago and wanted to take a look. Wu Wei said, "Brother Guan, could you stop here for a moment?" Guan Nanshan said, "Why not?" He lifted his hand and signaled the caravan to stop, shouting loudly, "Take a break, then hurry on." Wu Wei arched his hand and said, "I'll come if I go." As he approached the tiled house, Wu Wei saw the overgrown weeds in the courtyard. The roof also had several holes in it, and Wu Wei sighed before turning and leaving. Wu Wei arrived at the Guannan Mountain caravan and said, "Let's go, it's getting dark soon." Guan Nanshan didn't ask much about Wu Wei, just said, "Young Master Du hasn't seen you for years. How come you look like this?" Wu Wei said, "I came to Lingshan County 6 years ago to learn from my master." Guan Nanshan said, "Young master, why bother learning from his master again?" Wu Wei smiled and said, "Even ordinary people's martial arts can be classified into 3, 6, or 9 levels. I have learned that extraordinary skill." Guan Nanshan carefully looked at Wu Wei and seemed to understand something, but he didn't say anything before saying, "Guan remembers that there was another person with you back then, and I remember it was like your brother. Why didn't you see him?" Wu Wei said, he has his own destiny. It's fate that we will meet. Guan Nanshan nodded. At night, the caravan set up camp on the wasteland next to an official road. Guan Nanshan scolded and said, "The night watchman, cheer me up. Tie the dogs securely on the caravan." Without hesitation, one silently meditates on the side, feeling the refreshing energy of the moon's yin washing away one's body, which is very comfortable. The Taoist cultivates everywhere, and can nourish the coronal yang element during the day and nourish the moon's yin at night to achieve balance. Guan Nanshan walked to Wu Wei and said, "Young Master Du, why don't you rest in the tent?" Wu Wei closed his eyes and said, "No need, this place happens." In the middle of the night, the jade plate is as bright as day, with a hint of coolness that freezes the heart and mind. Wu Wei calmly felt something unusual and began to restrain his mind. Guan Nanshan woke up from the cold inside the tent and said, "Strange. How could this day be like Bailu Tian? It's so cold that it makes people tremble." Feeling strange, Guan Nanshan wore an extra long shirt and went out to inspect the tent. Suddenly, several black shadows flashed past, and Guan Nanshan shouted loudly, "Who is that? Come out quickly." With a loud shout, everyone in the caravan immediately gathered together. Holding a cold soldier with a tense expression. Guan Nanshan said, "You guys take care of the goods, I'll go call Mr. Du." Everyone said, "Yes." Wu Wei opened his eyes and said, "Brother Guan, don't worry about me." At this moment, several black shadows flashed past again, and Wu Wei knew in his heart that these people were ordinary people. He no longer cares, and the person hiding in the dense forest is the focus of Wu Wei's attention. Because that person is also a practitioner. Wu Wei said, "Brother Guan, these people are all skilled, so be careful." A few flying knives pierced through the air and headed straight towards Wu Wei, who drew a jade folding fan from behind with one hand. With just a casual wave, the flying knife suddenly lost its strength and scattered on the ground. Guan Nanshan was shocked when he saw Wu Wei and saw dozens of flying knives ambushing everyone in the caravan. Those with better skills in the caravan can use their swords to resist. A subtle move in the body that did not react quickly caused the injured person to bleed from their 7 orifices and die in a moment. Guan Nanshan said, "The hidden weapon is poisonous, everyone be careful." As soon as the words fell, arrows rained down like rain. Guan Nanshan leapt forward with his sword weaving a silver light, and everyone behind him also wielded their swords to resist the arrows like a torrent. People who do nothing are outsiders, and I don't want to interfere too much in mortal struggles. After the hidden arrow, about 20 people dressed in night clothes and wielding swords, rushed out from all sides simultaneously, forming an encirclement. Guan Nanshan saw a large crowd, and his subordinates had already died or injured half of them. The remaining 8 or 9 people huddled back to back. Guan Nanshan said, "Duke Du, leave first." A group of well-trained black-clad men swung their swords directly at the remaining few people in Guannan Mountain without much ado. Seeing this, Wu Wei knew that this battle was inevitable, but he didn't want to expose himself. He picked up a knife on the ground and used the Ji family's swordsmanship. A flying figure approached Guan Nanshan and said, "Brother Guan has feelings and righteousness, how can I stay out of this?" Guan Nanshan said, "This matter has nothing to do with the young master." Wu Wei smiled and said, "They are all from the lower 9th class. Brother Guan doesn't need to say much." I saw Wu Wei's sword movements, picking, plucking, teasing, and stabbing. The place where the knife passes is like a sky full of sparks. Hurry. Fast as lightning, Wu Wei is like a silver dragon, weaving through a crowd of black shadows. However, within a moment of taking a sip, Wu Wei threw down his knife and said, "Why don't you leave quickly? Today, I'll save my life. Then, I won't do anything that I'm willing to do." But there was a scar on the wrist of a group of black-clothed people, which happened to be good, only affecting the skin and flesh, not harming everyone's muscles and bones. At this moment, another black-clothed man flew out of the forest and said, what a beautiful kung fu. Why don't you join me? Let's work together, and in the future, this glory and wealth will not be easily obtainable. Guan Nanshan said, oh my goodness. You little mouse, report your name. Guan will not kill the unknown. The man in black sneered, what's the use of leaving a name for a person from the underworld? Wu Wei said, being able to receive your favor is truly frightening. Man in black. Although your martial arts are top-notch, in my eyes, you are like a newborn baby. Appreciating you is giving you a chance. Wu Wei smiled and said, so, then I have to thank you. The man in black sneered, why would we talk about thanking each other when we work together? Guan Nanshan said, now you're the only one. Do I have to tell you the story that 2 fists are difficult to defeat 4 hands? Wu Wei raised his hand and gestured to Guan Nanshan not to speak. The man in black laughed and said, ha ha ha. Even if you add another 100 people, they are all ants to me. Wu Wei said, oh. Do you dare to show your face to others? The man in black laughed wildly and said, do you also deserve it? Wu Wei said, oh. Is that right? The black-clothed man said, joke. You're just a little stronger than them, but if you slap your life in the back, you'll be dead. In fact, Wu Wei's spiritual consciousness has long been able to detect this person, but he is just a novice practitioner. In the realm of cultivation, there is a distinction between clouds and mud at every level. Even in the same realm, it is impossible to be an opponent in the middle and later stages in the early stage. Not to mention going beyond the level of challenge, it's simply impossible. In the early stage of the same realm, if you want to block your opponent in the later stage, you must hold a powerful magic weapon, and the magic weapon is not owned by everyone. Wu Wei no longer hides his own strength upon seeing the situation, and the immortal mansion painting appears out of thin air. The man in black changed his expression and said, you are a cultivator. He wanted to explore and glimpse the sea of inaction, but he didn't know that his spiritual consciousness was isolated by invisible energy, and his spiritual consciousness was as oppressed as a mountain. With a mouthful of blood spat out, he quickly knelt down and said, Immortal, save your life. Wu Wei angrily said, the power and martial arts deceive people, wasting this kind of creation. I won't keep you. The man in black was obstinate and said, God, spare me. I have eyes but don't know about Mount Tai. Give me a chance. The man in black's eyes flashed a cold light, and a small bone sword appeared in his hand and stabbed Wu Wei's chest. With just a crisp sound, the small bone sword in the black-clothed man's hand could not penetrate even 3 inches in front of Wu Wei's body, and the bone sword instantly shattered into powder. The black-clothed man spewed out a mouthful of blood, and his face had already turned pale. Wu Wei said, how many people want to achieve a perfect destiny and go through countless hardships? And you don't know how difficult it is to cultivate, so you waste this opportunity bestowed by heaven. But since heaven has the virtue of good life, I will destroy your sea of qi. Let you not use martial arts in the future. After speaking, Wu Wei's hand emitted a golden light, and a golden light did not enter the lower abdomen of the black-clothed man. With a squeeze of Wu Wei's hand, the popularity of the black-clothed man was forcefully dispersed by Wu Wei, and from then on, he was no different from ordinary people. A group of accomplices saw this and fled for their lives. Some want to run, but their legs are too scared to move. Wu Wei said, I know your original intention was not to do evil with this person. People are not saints. It's better for everyone to do something good with Brother Guan than to lick blood with a knife. One of the black-clothed men unbuttoned his mask and said, Lord Shangxian, we were indeed forced by this person's military force. This place is a thief, and we have not benefited either. The remaining few people also unbuttoned their masks and said, Master Shangxian, this person is relying on his own cultivation of magic. He threatens us, and we dare not speak out. Today, we need to be rescued by Master Shangxian. We only hope that you can hand over this person to us for handling. We are willing to follow Guan Haohan and become a merchant guard. Guan Nanshan was still worried, but Wu Wei saved his life again. He also took the opportunity to solve his own manpower problem, and at this moment, the figure of Du Gongzi in front of Guan Nanshan became much more majestic. Encountering Du Gongzi by chance from Lulin town, Wu Wei treated him as a chance encounter, and then to his shock just now, his actions have already impressed Guan Nanshan immensely. Immortals have a way, and they detest evil. The journey in the world is long, goodbye next time. Chapter 8. Returning to the moon's home again. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After a bitter battle, the sky is almost dawn. Everyone tied up the man in black. Tearing open the masked black scarf, he was an extremely ugly middle-aged man with a scabies on his left face, emitting a foul odor and dripping yellow water. A group of people who were previously forced by this person poured several pots of cold water on their bodies. Although it was not winter at this time, they lost too much blood on their bodies and their chi was destroyed. This person at this time is even weaker than ordinary people. Trembling uncontrollably amidst the chorus of condemnation from the crowd. A group of people who had been bullied by him were beaten to death with their sticks. Dragged to the barren mountain to feed the wild dogs. Guan Nanshan said, "You all have a close relationship with Guan. Please handle the affairs of your deceased brothers. Rest well for a day before embarking on your journey." Everyone said one after another, "Yes." Wu Wei carefully looked at Guan Nanshan and said, "Brother Guan, the way of being a person is truly admirable to me." Guan Nanshan smiled and said, "Ah. They are all hard-working people. These are common human feelings." Wu Wei nodded, still giving Guan Nanshan more praise in his heart. Although the ways are different, there are few people who compare their hearts to each other. 20 days later, Wu Wei, Guan Nanshan and others had almost arrived at Liangzhou city. Guan Nanshan smiled and said, "2 more hills ahead of Duke Du, we will arrive at Liangzhou city." Wu Wei said, "Time has passed quite quickly while traveling with Brother Guan." Guan Nanshan said, "When wine meets a close friend, I can also consider Guan Nanshan and Duke Du to be forgetful friends." Wu Wei said, "That's it." Guan Nanshan said, "There is a reed shed 2 miles ahead, specifically designed for us and other merchants to rest. We will go there and drink a bowl of coarse tea." Wu Wei said, "That's great." The crowd unloaded the heavy objects from the horses and drank the unique tea soup of Liangzhou city. This tea is called Shudiyin tea, which is unique to Yuzhou and Liangzhou. Not to mention luxury, but in Yuzhou and Liangzhou, both officials, nobles, and ordinary people enjoy drinking this tea. Wu Wei picked up the bowl and smelled a faint floral fragrance, mixed with a strong shade of aged flavor. It may not be delicious, but it is definitely not difficult to drink. Tea soup at the entrance, hot, moist, fragrant, and sweet. In the throat and lower abdomen, the entire mouth is only sweet and refreshing. It's great for relieving heat and thirst, no wonder people here value it as a treasure. Along the way, I kept closing the South Mountain mouth without stopping, asking questions. Wu Wei did not show any impatience and answered every question. Guan Nanshan said, "Duke Du, I don't know when we can see each other again at this moment." Wu Wei said, "Brother Guan, what do you mean?" "When we arrive at Liangzhou city, I have something else I want to ask Brother Guan for." Guan Nanshan said, "Oh. That's why Guan is so obligated. I don't know what Duke Du entrusted me with." Wu Wei smiled faintly and said, "Let's talk about it later. It's all up to Brother Guan's wishes." Seeing that Guan Nanshan is a reliable person, Wu Wei wanted him to stay in the Yu family. After all, the grandfather's family is one of the few wealthy merchants in Liangzhou city. The lights ahead were brightly lit, and Guan Nanshan ordered, "Everyone gather up and in half an hour, it will be Liangzhou city." The continuous pursuit of stars and the moon has left everyone exhausted. The city of Liangzhou, which is within reach, has ignited 120,000 pieces of joy among the crowd. Entering the city is still bustling with traffic, but this time it's me. Guan Nanshan said, Brother Wu Wei, we will go to Jiaju Market to deliver the goods. Let's say goodbye for now. Wu Wei said, okay. I'm waiting for Brother Guan in the Moon Mansion. I hope Brother Guan won't break his promise. Guan Nanshan looked at the caravan and said, since that's the case, Guan will be waiting at the gate of the Moon Mansion tomorrow. Wu Wei said, I will wait for good news from Brother Guan. Guannan Mountain Road. Definitely. After several twists and turns, Wu Wei arrived at the Moon Mansion, and the old man in front of the door had been replaced by a 13 or 14-year-old young man. As Wu Wei was about to step forward, the young man said, Where did the sour Taoist come from? This is also where you came from. Wu Wei said, Young brother, could you please announce that Xiao He is coming? The young man said, I've never heard of Xiao He before. Let's leave quickly. Wu Wei thought to himself, isn't everyone looking at the door the same? Helplessly, he took out the token that his grandfather had given him. The young man saw the token and hurriedly said, Are you? Wu Wei said, Do you see the truth? Go and inform the homeowner. Without hesitation, the young man hurried into the house. A familiar voice sounded, and it was Yu Duaning who said, Xiao He. Come in now. Wu Wei entered the house and saw his third uncle, whose beard was already thick and his body had gained a lot of weight. Wu Wei said, Uncle. I haven't seen you in a few years. Yu Duaning said happily, First, go to the hall. Then let's talk slowly. The family members who had not seen each other for a long time in the hall were delighted to meet Wu Wei again. Wu Wei said, Uncle, why don't you see second uncle? And grandpa? Yu Duaning said, My grandfather is coming over, and my second brother is seriously injured. He has difficulty moving. Wu Wei exclaimed in surprise, What? Did second uncle get injured? Yu Duaning Dao said, About half a month ago, several wealthy families in Liangzhou City were attacked by unknown martial artists. Wu Wei said, Do you know who did it? Yu Duaning Dao said, I don't know yet. The Li and Wang families in the east of Liangzhou City have not left a single survivor overnight. Wu Wei exclaimed in surprise, Isn't this exactly the same as my Ji family? Yu Duaning nodded and said, Our Yu family usually acts in a low-key manner. The Wang and Li families have suffered a tragic death, which is not clear. Wu Wei said, What clues do you have? Yu Duaning said calmly, Almost none. The whereabouts of these people are a mystery. As for their purpose, we don't know. At this moment, an elderly man came to the hall and said with joy, Son Xiaohe. Wu Wei knelt down and said to his grandfather, Grandpa, Xiao He has bowed to you. Yu Qiansong said, You're really my grandson. Why don't you see your brother? Wu Wei said, Xiao Zhou has another destiny and cannot return for a while. Yu Qiansong nodded with tears in his eyes and said, It's good to come back. It's good to come back. I'm just afraid that this old bone of mine will never see you two again in my lifetime. Wu Wei supported Yu Qiansong and said, If that's the case, Grandpa's blessings are as good as the East Sea. Don't you think I'm doing well? Yu Qiansong carefully examined Wu Wei and said, Oh my, the child has grown up. He has grown taller and also gained a lot of strength. Just looking at Wu Wei in a tattered Taoist robe with a sour smell, he said, Third, why don't you change here's clothes? Yu Duaning said, I just got in. I didn't have time. Yu Qiansong shouted loudly, Someone, hurry up and bathe and change clothes for son Xiaoye. Wu Wei said, Grandpa, I can come on my own. After following the servants and bathing and changing clothes, I finally realized that Wu Wei was now green-haired, with a sword eyebrow and white teeth, and a skin as white as jade. He was no longer the dark young man he used to be. Upon arriving in the hall, Yu Qiansong was very satisfied as she looked at her grandson in front of her. Yu Duaning saw that after some grooming, Wu Wei was so handsome, and a hint of approval appeared on her face. Wu Wei said, "Uncle, why don't you continue to talk about the murder of a wealthy family in the city?" Yu Qiansong said, "Did you talk to hear about this?" Yu Duaning said, "Well, just now Xiao he asked second brother, and that's why he talked about this matter." Yu Qiansong said, "Perhaps I can already see some eyebrows." Wu Wei said, "Oh. Where did Grandpa see that?" Yu Qiansong said, "The Li family in the east of the city is not as wealthy as my Yu family in terms of family assets, but everyone in this Li family practices martial arts, and the two family leaders have extraordinary martial arts skills. And a year and 3 years ago, my Yu family's lower family in Yenzhou and Yuzhou were all affected by this. The Wei family in the south of Liangzhou has been engaged in business for generations, and their family is wealthy, but they are unharmed. My Yu family also practices martial arts, but few outsiders know that my Yu family practices martial arts. It can be seen from this that this group of people is afraid to only target those who practice martial arts." Wu Wei said, "Since few people know that my Yu family is practicing martial arts, how did my second uncle get injured?" Yu Qian let go and patted the table, saying, "This villain was so captivated by the widow of the Wang family. That day, the second son happened to be at the Wang family. Fortunately, the second son was lucky and escaped a disaster." Yu Duaningdan said with concern, "I'm afraid that this time, my second brother will get angry and cause trouble for the family." Wu Wei said, "Since I have arrived, my grandfather and uncle don't need to worry." Wu Wei thought of what Qianlongzhenren had said. This matter is by no means the work of an ordinary person. The people under his command are well trained, and this is by no means an easy task. Yu Duaning thought for a moment and said, "So, the enemy is afraid that our Yu family will not be able to escape the disaster." Wu Wei rushed and said, "According to my master, this matter first started in the realm of cultivation. It did not affect ordinary people, but now ordinary martial arts practitioners. The entire family has encountered unexpected situations, and it seems that the conspirators behind it have reached out to the martial arts aristocratic family." Yu Qiansong said, "It seems that Heer's trip to eastern Sichuan has really brought great fortune." Wu Wei said calmly, "Everything is predetermined by heaven, not by my great creation. I am just following the times and adding coincidences." Yu Qiansong said, "I wonder which cave or immortal sect Heer has worshipped." Wu Wei said, "My grandson is fortunate enough to be under the tutelage of the hidden dragon Immortal at Yuzhen Rock in Qianyuan Mountain, Yuzhou. His master bestowed the Taoist name Wu Wei." Yu Duaning said, "What about Xiao Zhou?" Wu Wei said, "Xiao Zhou has been worshipped by the Guangzhou abbot of Huangjue Temple." Yu Qiansong said, "Didn't that boat become a monk? How will she get married in the future?" Yu Qiansong thought to himself, "Wu Wei." Wu Wei said, "Since my two brothers have such a chance, the matter of love between children and daughters should be set aside. Everything follows fate and we shoulder the heavy responsibility of the world." Yu Duaning looked at the nephew in front of her and felt that he seemed very special. "Sitting next to him is like a gentle breeze brushing against my face, or like a deep pool, unfathomable." Having shed his childishness and become quite mature, Yu Duaning said, "Do Xiao he want to go see second brother?" Wu Wei said, "You should be like this." Then he followed the two elders to the Yu Duanxiong ward. Yu Duanxiong said with a pale and sorrowful expression, "I heard before that the servant Dao Xiao he has arrived, but my uncle is seriously injured and I can't compete with you anymore." Wu Wei said calmly, "I heard that my uncle has been severely injured." Xiao he came to see his uncle's injuries. "It's not too late to have a sparring when he's healed." Yu Qiansong said with a hint of displeasure, "Second, you're already so virtuous. You're still thinking about a martial arts competition." Yu Duaning also agreed, "That's right." Wu Wei said, "Grandfather, third uncle. Second uncle likes martial arts not every day and night. Let me take a look at his injuries first." After finishing speaking, Wu Wei pointed to the section of exploring the moon with a majestic inch and closed his eyes to contemplate. A bit of Xuanzi's true qi is also released, wandering through the male limbs and 100 meridians of the moon section. However, within the Moon Duan Ambition Mansion, there were remnants of cultivators with true qi. Overlord is abnormal. Wu Wei opened his eyes and said, the person who injured my second uncle is not insignificant. The residual true energy of the Heart Mansion is extremely strong. Yu Qiansong said, is there a way? Wu Wei said, of course, once I reach my second uncle, I will have no worries. Yu Duaning said, that's good. Wu Wei nodded and said, I have already passed through a bit of true qi. When my true qi subsides, my second uncle's powerful and domineering heart will be eliminated. This process requires my second uncle to rest for 3 more days before undergoing treatment. My second uncle will be safe. Yu Qiansong said, Farewell Uncle. Wu Wei said, grandfather is already old, let's take a break first. Yu Qiansong said, why spend more time with my grandfather when I'm old and have just returned home? Yu Duaning said, Dad, you're already 90 and 40. Let's listen to Xiao He. Wu Wei said, Grandpa, don't worry, I will be here for the next few days. Yu Qiansong said, all right. All right. I'll take a break. After speaking, the servant helped the old man back to his room to rest. Wu Wei said, Uncle, is there a shortage of manpower in the family? Yu Duaning said, what does Xiao He mean? Wu Wei then told Yu Duaning about the acquaintance process of Guan Nanshan and his group. Yu Duaning said, I see. Wu Wei said, Brother Guan is also considered a skilled hand. All his subordinates have had a close relationship with him. My nephew and brother Guan traveled all the way to Liangzhou, and he is a trustworthy person. Yu Duaning said, your second uncle is seriously injured, and everyone in the family is an elderly person. We have all been with the Yu family for a lifetime, just like a family. Besides, your grandfather and I don't want your second uncle to fight and kill all day. It's just right to have such a hero. Yu Duaning said again, since it's recommended by Xiao He, then I, as an uncle, have no reason to evade it. Wu Wei nodded and said, this seemingly peaceful world is actually filled with hidden tides. Adding a few martial arts practitioners at home can at least protect the elderly and weak in case of danger. He also said, Brother Guan and I have arranged to meet at the door tomorrow. Yu Duaning said, that's great. You walk the world's roads, but Bodhi is not here. How many autumn are you dreaming of in Liangzhou? Shoo. Shoo. The zither rustles softly, and Su Yunpeng laughs day by day. Chapter 9. Moon Family Crisis. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At noon, a group of Guan Nanshan waited outside the Moon Mansion. The gatekeeper was so frightened that he dared not say much and remained stunned. He had not seen such a battle in the Yu family in the past 2 years. Wu Wei walked outside the door and said, I've kept Brother Guan waiting for a long time. Guan Nanshan saw Wu Wei and arched his hand, saying, where is Du Gongzi? I wonder why Du Gongzi invited us to come. Wu Wei said, Brother Guan, why don't you come in and talk? Inside the room, Yueduan Yingtang sat tall and said, Uncle, this is the Guan Nanshan Guan elder brother I told you about. Guan Nanshan was puzzled in his heart and said, Uncle. Then he said again, dare to love Prince Du, he is the nephew of the Yu family. Wu Wei smiled and said, exactly, exactly. Yu Duaning said, Du Gongzi. Xiao He. Are you called Du Gongzi? Wu Wei explained, my mother once said that it's better to be anonymous when wandering in the martial arts world. So Xiao He claimed to be surnamed Du outside. Guan Nanshan said again, that young master doesn't have the surname Du, dare you ask his surname? Wu Wei said, Brother Guan, you're welcome. My family name is Ji. I'm from Yunzhou. Guan Nanshan suddenly said, oh. It's normal to have an alias when wandering in the martial arts world. Wu Wei said, Brother Guan, to be honest, he has come all the way from Yuzhou. He greatly appreciates Brother Guan's character. I wonder if Brother Guan is willing to settle in my Yu family. Yu Duaning said, my Yu family is also considered a prestigious family in Liangzhou, but they are all elderly and weak. The hero is willing to devote himself to my Yu family, so naturally he will not mistreat his brothers. Guan Nanshan naturally knew that his family was one of the top businessmen in Liangzhou this month. The head of the household, Yu Qiansong, is a renowned philanthropist from afar. I have also dealt with people from the Moon Mansion before and am very envious. Now that the young master of the Ji Gongzi Yu family in front of me invites me, it's a great thing that I won't have to worry about for the rest of my life. Guan Nanshan said, how could Guan be appreciated by the two young masters? Wu Wei said, Brother Guan, you don't need to be humble anymore. What does Brother Guan mean? Guan Nanshan said, Prince Ji is as grateful to me as a mountain. How could Guan refuse? Guan Nanshan said again, Guan's fortune is entirely due to Prince Ji, only the brothers behind him. Yu Duaning Dao said, as an invitation to Guan Haohan and his brothers are also included. You are familiar with each other and cooperate well in your work. Guan Nanshan was moved and said, thank you very much, Master Ji. Thank you very much, Master Yu. Wu Wei said, just say thank you and be polite. Currently, Liangzhou is also in a tumultuous autumn, and our Yu family has already been besieged. Guan Nanshan said, how could this peaceful world become a tumultuous autumn? Guan Nanshan had been outside and knew very little about the affairs within the city of Liangzhou. Yu Duaning Dao said, in fact, in recent years, there have been incidents of overnight downfall of martial arts aristocratic families in various places, and since half a month ago, both the Wang and Li families in the east of the city have been destroyed overnight. Apart from my father practicing martial arts with my second brother, the rest of my Yu family are ordinary people. Guan Nanshan said, I have heard that the Zhou family in Baoning County, Yuzhou was brutally killed overnight. We thought it was the Zhou family who retaliated against our enemies. Wu Wei said, to be honest, Brother Guan, the same goes for the Ji family in Yunzhou. My brother, my mother, and I are just surviving by chance. Guan Nanshan was shocked and said, is there such a thing in this world? Wu Wei said, there is a shocking conspiracy hidden behind this, and I have been surviving to uncover the true culprit behind it. Yu Duaning said, it's not too late for such a hero to turn back now. Guan Nanshan said solemnly, Master Moon, am I Guan who is greedy for life and afraid of death? His words are hard to recall. Moreover, Prince Ji has shown me great kindness and has a strong friendship. I, Guan, and my brothers, are willing to work tirelessly. Wu Wei said, Brother Guan, those are just a matter of hands and don't worry. Yu Duaning said, my second brother was also seriously injured while being in the Wang family a few days ago. I'm afraid he may have caught fire. Guan Nanshan said, since Lord Yu and Prince Ji believe in Guan, Guan will definitely live up to his trust. Wu Wei said, everything will be worth it. Guan Nanshan said, Master Ji, I will go and inform all the brothers. He bowed and said goodbye. Yu Duaning said, Xiao He, I think Guan Nanshan is indeed a skilled player. Wu Wei said, that's natural. Let me go see my second uncle first. Yu Duaning nodded. Upon arriving at Yu Duanxiong's residence, he heard Yu Qiansong loudly say, second brother. Dad doesn't object to any girl you like, but you still remember that Wang family widow. She's a widow and has a child. What do you think you're looking for? Yu Duanxiong felt very uncomfortable and said, Father Song Qing is a good woman. I'm afraid she has already encountered an unexpected situation now. Yu Qiansong said, it's better to die. It saves you from acting recklessly again. You don't object to any girl or father you find. Only this widow from the Wang family can't. Yu Duanxiong, suffering from illness, said, "Dad. Can you stop being a widow every time?" Yu Qiansong said, "Is what Dad said wrong?" Wu Wei felt a bit embarrassed as he cleared his throat and knocked on the door, "Grandpa and Uncle. Xiao He has come to see you." Upon hearing Wu Wei's shout, Yu Qiansong's face changed and she smiled as she opened the door, saying, "Here, come and see my second uncle." Wu Wei said, "Yesterday, I slowed down my second uncle's dominance in the Heart Mansion. Today, I came to visit him again." Yu Duanxiong said, "I feel much better now." Wu Wei said, "I'm worried that there may be some unexpected changes in the next few days. I think it's better to help my second uncle resolve the remaining energy in the Heart Mansion in advance." Yu Duan's ambition also made it clear. "It's my fault for this. If I didn't show my martial arts skills, our family wouldn't be in a state of panic now." Wu Wei said, "Second uncle, this is not your original intention either." Wu Wei looked at Yu Qiansong and said, "Grandfather, please wait in the outer hall. I can't be affected by my second uncle's injury at all." Yu Qiansong took a step, and Wu Wei untied Yu Duanxiong's clothes. He saw a black and blue palm print on his chest. Heart said, "This person's palm is so domineering, I'm afraid he's a martial artist." Wu Wei closed his eyes and focused on his true energy, slowly moving it to the Moon Section Ambition Mansion. Wu Wei saw that the blood-red energy from the Heart Mansion was still fiercely attacking the Xuanzi true energy left by Wu Wei yesterday. Wu Wei slowly controlled his true element, trying to open a hole and release the red aura Xuanzi true element bit by bit. However, it was just a small opening, and the domineering aura burst out like a wild horse. Moon Duanxiong's heart was instantly injured, and a mouthful of fresh blood gushed out. Upon seeing this, Wu Wei quickly sealed several important acupoints in the Moon Section Xiongzi Palace, Tanzhong, and Shinto. Wu Wei dared not relax any further and had to wrap the red energy once again. This time, Wu Wei only opened a pinhole-like small eye on Xuanzi Zhenyuan, released a little bit, and then sealed it, repeating this process. Completely unaware that it was already the prime time. And beads of sweat flowed down the forehead, indicating the complexity of the matter. At this moment, two black shadows were lurking in the dark outside, observing one of them. "This month's family is indeed hiding a master." Another person whispered, "This spirit measuring Gui is really powerful. As long as there is a master's aura, it will change color." Another person said, "Jiao Su, be careful, we are not those high practitioners." Jiao Su said, "Mao Su, hurry back and report to the Lord." Then the two disappeared above the high wall. The Wu Wei spiritual consciousness sensed someone in the dark and stopped because it showed a tired state. Yu Duanxiong's internal dominance was also absorbed into his body by Wu Wei. Due to the extraordinary strength of the red energy, it was impossible to push it out of the body, and the male complexion of the Moon Section also recovered a bit. Wu Wei said, "Second uncle, you should cultivate yourself well. Xiao He will come again tomorrow." Yu Duanxiong said, "It's bothering you." Wu Wei said, "Second uncle, we were originally a family. These are all things that should have happened." After finishing, he returned to his own residence. Wu Wei thought for a moment and said to the two people lurking outside, "Those two should be detectives. It seems that this conspirator will be exposed." The next day, in the same month as Wu Wei, Duan Yingyue Qiansong said, "Grandpa, uncle, last night at midnight, my spiritual sense sensed that someone was secretly observing the mansion." Yu Duaning said, "How could this happen?" Wu Wei nodded and said, "Those two people are probably just pawns in front of a horse. However, these two people carry a treasure that can measure spiritual energy. He thinks that trouble may come in the next few days." Yu Qiansong said, "The second one really brought trouble home this time." Wu Wei said, "Don't just blame your second uncle for this matter. The spirit measuring device they hold may have been tested by any wealthy family." Yu Duaning said, "What do you think should be done, Xiao He?" Wu Wei said, "First disperse the elderly and the weak, to avoid innocence. Yu Qiansong sighed and said, these family members have been with me for a lifetime. Yu Duaning said, this matter cannot be delayed. I will give orders immediately. Wu Wei continued to heal Yu Duanxiong, but his red energy was very restless. Yesterday was okay, but absorbing too much today made Wu Wei very uncomfortable. I can only suppress that energy to the soles of my feet to my vagina. A group of people sat on the ground, all dressed in black and masked, with several burnt campfires in the forest outside Liangzhou city. However, this group of people were all hanging a Pisces jade plaque around their waist. The only difference is that the tassels on the jade plaque have different colors. Two people said, report to the master that after investigation, there are indeed hidden experts in this month's family. The leader said, oh. What is the reaction of the spirit measuring Gui? Jiao Su said, report to the hall master at the spirit measuring Gui has changed from green to black. The leader said, it seems that the Moon family is indeed hiding a master of martial arts. The black color indicates that he is an elderly person. It seems that the old master of the Moon family's martial arts has reached its peak. It is the threshold for entering the path of cultivation. Mao Su said, Master, will we take action today or tomorrow? The leader said, don't ask what shouldn't be asked. Yu Duaning summoned all his family members, but more than 100 people were still unaware. Manager Lu distributed the salary and silver for the next 10 years one by one. Yu Duaning said, you have all been in the Yu family for several lifetimes, and our Yu family has not treated you as servants. Today, I have prepared 10 more years of salary in silver for all uncles, aunts, siblings. Even when you return home, you will not worry about your livelihood. It was only then that everyone understood that this was about to break up. An old man said, don't be the head of the family. My old father has been in the Moon family since then, and my son and grandson have been in the Moon family for generations. This is our home. Where am I going from here? Everyone said one after another, yes. Yes. Yu Duaning Dao said, a few days ago, there was suddenly no one alive in the Li family of the east of the city overnight. To be honest, my second brother was injured because of this. Now, I am afraid of getting angry, so it is also a helpless move to ask the elders to retire and return home. The old man said, don't be the head of the family. Even if we die, we are willing to do so. The old Dong family is kind-hearted and benevolent. Who knows about Liangzhou city? We are even more grateful for the countless blessings of Mr. Yu. Yu Duaning said, I earnestly request you elders to leave. When this matter is resolved, you will return to the Yu family. More than 100 people in the courtyard burst into tears in an instant. Yu Duaning also felt very uncomfortable in her heart. After all, these people are all watching themselves grow up. A group of people were very reluctant to help each other and said, Xiao Dong's wealth is really too much. We don't want it. We will come back again. Lu Guanjia said, take it all. It's the intention of the young master's family. Everyone covered their faces and wiped their tears before leaving one after another. Yu Duaning said, Mr. Lu. I haven't finished speaking yet. Lu Guanjia said, young master, there's no need to say much. I understand. After speaking, he left with his luggage. The family members dispersed one after another, and the vast Moon mansion appeared empty and desolate. Late at night, Moon Duanxiong had reached the final stage of healing, and Wu Wei was fully focused. And outside the courtyard, Guan Nanshan shouted loudly, who is that? Come out. Dozens of black shadows flew over. A person chuckled inwardly and said, it seems that this month's family is very sensitive. Where did they just find you guys who are not in the mainstream? Guan Nanshan angrily said, bring your life. In an instant, dozens of people in the courtyard were fighting one after another. And there were still 2 people who didn't take action, they carefully watched these people. It seems like I'm still searching for something. Yu Qiansong heard of the fighting outside the house and wanted to use the sword to fight. Yu Duaning said, "Dad, wait a moment. Let me come." Yu Qiansong looked at Yu Duaning and said, "Third, isn't that all you have to do?" Yu Duaning said, "Then I can't let you go on an adventure." After saying that, Yu Duaning rushed out of the house with a big knife and chopped at the two people. One person tirelessly said, "Praying mantis blocking the car." Yu Duaning said, "I am not a member of the mainstream in Luan Wugong, but I want to know why I took action against my Yu family." The man in black said, "When you reach the underworld, you will naturally know." After speaking, lightning struck Moon Duaning with a palm. Moon Duaning didn't react quickly and could only use a large knife to resist. With just one palm, the Yinghu mouth of the moon section was shattered and retreated 2 zhang backwards. Upon seeing this, Guan Nanshan quickly flew over to Daoyue Duaning and said, "Young master, first find a quiet place to hide. I'll kill this one later." Yu Duaning said, "Although I have poor martial arts skills, I am not a person who lives a miserable life." After speaking, he raised his sword and killed the black-clothed man in the chaotic battle. The man in black smiled and said, "Just rely on you." Guan Nanshan didn't hesitate to say anything, and directly called out to accompany and shout, "One blade of the cold river." The man in black just moved his figure a little, slashed into the air with a knife, and said to Guan Nanshan, "Master." The man in black sneered, "It's not that I'm powerful, but that you're too incompetent." Guan Nanshan smiled and said, "Oh really?" After speaking, he stood up and shouted, "Two blades destroy the mountain." As soon as this move was used, he saw the knife reaching the neck of the black-clothed man's throat. The black-clothed man seemed to be a bit dizzy and quickly withdrew to dodge. The man in black said, "There's something. But not much." Guan Nanshan knew that this person wanted to use words to interfere, and with a single strike, he said, "3 blades cut the sea." Guan Nanshan's swordsmanship is stronger than a single strike. The man in black saw that his words were ineffective and had to wave his sword to resist. And the other person remained unmoved, as if everything in front of them was predetermined. After a moment, dozens of wounds were added to the body of the person who was fighting with Guan Nanshan, although it was not crucial. It also made the man in black very embarrassed. At this moment, Wu Wei was also very anxious, knowing that the danger in the courtyard was imminent, and couldn't pull away for a moment. Yu Duaning also turned a lot red on her body. Guan Nanshan saw Yu Duaning injured and said, "Young master, quickly retreat." Yu Duaning turned a deaf ear. Guan Nanshan reacted calmly and was stabbed in the forearm by a sword from the man in black. The man in black said, "Being distracted on the battlefield is a big taboo. Be careful, you won't have such good luck next time." Seeing his arm turn red, Guan Nanshan angrily said, "I admit you have something, but if you provoke Guan Nanshan, it will be like touching a dragon in scales." After speaking, Guan Nanshan's face changed, and his body's aura surged. His internal strength had reached its limit. He only heard and drank, a 100-bladed angry lion roaring. His domineering sword energy rushed towards the man in black, making a loud roar and smoke and dust rising everywhere. A black suit turned into fragments, a broken sword fell to the ground with a clang, and the person was no longer visible, leaving only the sticky and bloody ground. The motionless man in black said coldly, "A person who is arrogant and conceited will not hesitate to die." At this point, Guan Nanshan was exhausted and panting heavily. The person standing still moved and was about to swing his sword to change the boring fighting on the field. A powerful sword aura in the room cut off the thoughts of the person in front of them. What Guan Nanshan saw with both eyes was the 1,000 pines of the moon. The black-clothed man said, "Finally, the Lord has arrived." Yu Qiansong is also a veteran on the battlefield, even though he is over 100 years old, he still holds a powerful sword in his hand. Yu Qiansong said, "Old San, quickly retreat." Yu Duaning saw her father take action and withdrew to watch the battle. The Moon Thousand Pine Blade pointed at the man in black and said, "Purpose." The black-clothed man said, "Follow orders." His sword and palm came out together. Yu Qiansong shouted loudly, "The moon gathers the western mountain." With a long sword and a short sword, the swords intersect like gold, stone, and jade. Two palms facing each other, stirring up dust and smoke. Both of them were shocked, each took a step back. The black-clothed man said, "You are the most deserving person in my family that I have ever seen." Yu Qiansong said, "Then come on." The man in black flew into mid-air and said, "Sword hidden Lushan blood hidden blade." Yu Qiansong's true energy surged all over his body, and his long beard became automatic when there was no wind. Shouting loudly, "How Yue Huiguang slash!" The ultimate move instantly caused the earth in the courtyard to collapse, and Yu Qiansong was already in a big pit. Yu Qian loosened her mouth and spat out blood, and the person in black seemed to be struggling. Yu Qiansong said, "I have been wandering in the martial arts world for nearly 100 years, and I have a clear conscience. What are you people for?" The man in black said faintly, "The last law will destroy the martial arts." After finishing speaking, the man in black was enveloped in red light and said faintly, "The night has turned a remnant of red in the starry field." Yu Qiansong shouted, "Everyone, hurry up." The room was filled with anxiety and felt two powerful energies in the courtyard. Grandfather, the confidant of the heart, had no choice but to absorb all the red aura in one go. And this move also leads to self-destruction. Yu Qiansong was lifting his true qi and drinking. Reverse kill Zhenlong Shao. The double moves were in alignment, and Yu Qiansong's strength was exhausted like a broken kite. Wu Wei took a quick step and stabilized Yu Qiansong's body, waving his palm to block the black-clothed man's killing move. The man in black was instantly surprised and said, "Practitioner." He thought the practitioner was the old man from the Moon family. Guan Nanshan's face lit up with joy when he saw Wu Wei. Practicing martial arts to the extreme will give you the opportunity to touch the threshold of cultivation, or you may have already entered the door. And this is the person targeted by these black-clad people. Who would have thought it was a young person? The black-clothed man knew the news was wrong and wanted to escape. Wu Wei said, "Do you want to leave?" Man in black. "Someone will come again." Wu Wei said lightly, "Is that so?" The man in black said, "Of course." Wu Wei carefully examined the black-clothed man in front of him and saw a dazzling jade plaque on his waist. Wu Wei said, "It's hard for you to escape this time." The man in black said, "It's okay." Wu Wei kneaded his hand and said, "There is no limit to heaven and earth. True martial arts subdue the Dharma. True martial arts shield the spiritual cord." In an instant, dozens of golden chains locked the black-clothed people on the field. But all the black-clothed people bit the wax balls in their mouths and poisoned themselves. The black-clothed man in front of him laughed and said, "The last Dharma will come again." After speaking, his whole body burst into a red light, and the airflow surged, his body resembling a round ball. Seeing nothing, the painting of the Immortal Mansion turned into a blue light, hidden in the sea of black clothing and popularity. In an instant, the red light dissipated and the black-clothed man deflated and withered. Wu Wei muttered, "The ultimate law." Wu Wei supported Yu Qiansong and said, "Is Grandpa okay?" Yu Qiansong said, "No problem." After this battle, Wu Wei had a new idea in his heart and said, "Grandfather, it's better to leave here." Yu Qiansong smiled and said, "I am 100 years old, you. Where are I going?" Yu Duaning also said, "Yes. Xiao He, I know you're doing it for our good." Wu Wei said, "Today these people are just pawns. And it's me. I'm here now, how can I be here all the time?" Guan Nanshan said, "Are you saying that these people today are just pioneers?" Wu Wei said sternly, "Not bad. The injury on my second uncle's body was not caused by anyone on the field, and the leader didn't look surprised at me, indicating that there are cultivators among them. He also said that someone will come, so the next time they will come must be cultivators. Think about it, this time it will be as difficult as this. What about next time? Yu Qiansong pondered silently. After all, fallen leaves have returned to their roots. Moving with a family in their 90s is really uncomfortable. Yu Duaning said, Xiao He, where do you think we should go? Wu Wei said, I did think of a place, but... Before he could finish speaking, Wu Wei's body was restless. A mouthful of fresh blood spurted out. Everyone was instantly extremely nervous, and Yu Qiansong and the others hurriedly said, Here. Xiao He. Master Ji. Wu Wei's face turned as if on paper and he said, I'm fine, it's just that Jinyuan had consumed too much before, and the powerful force inside second uncle's body surged back. I absorbed it. Yu Qiansong said, Grandson, I'm going to get you medicine. Wu Wei said, I'm really fine. Just take some time to recuperate. Please consider it as soon as possible, Grandpa. Yu Duaning said to Guan Nanshan, everyone has worked hard. Let's go down and rest first. Wu Wei came into the room, closed his eyes and regulated his breath. The Xuanzi Jinyuan in his body seemed very active after the war. In meditation, Wu Wei saw his body as if sitting in front of him. Wu Wei felt his divine consciousness clear, like a swallow in the clouds. In the sea of Wu Wei Qi, mist shrouds and rotates on its own, as if there is a little golden light like rain in the mist. And all of this in action is completely unknown. Along the way, I saw my old friends through the mountains and rivers. The green ox bowed its head, and the mist dissipated. Quick Chiu Ao's divine journey, return tomorrow.